Friend's dad forced me to try his bad cooking that made me throw up over it, but he wouldn't allow me to leave the table until I finish it. Hey, so this is a bit of a long one, and the parent involved is not entirely entitled, but more like insane. First of all, a bit of background. I had a best friend, and we were really close, to the point where she would stay over mine and my parents' house for months, especially over the summer. At some point, she transferred to my school, and she would stay with us for up to 3 to 4 months straight. Go home for a day or two or on holiday with her family, and then come back to us and stay for the next few months. In the meantime, I've possibly been at her house maybe once or twice in my life. Anyway, during her stays, my mum would go as far as making separate meals for both of us, as I'm a picky eater and have some food intolerances. For example, I only eat bird meat and occasional seafood, where my friend loves red meat and pork and eats a lot but stays skinny. During her stays, we would also give her clothes, do laundry, drive her to school, and cover up any food shopping, including snacks. But her parents never reimbursed us for any of these expenses, despite being well off. They had 6+ massive houses, always had the newest cars, and had a toilet made of gold in one of the bathrooms that only her father was allowed to use. My family didn't pay much attention, since she was a friend and we had a good time. Now, this had been going on for a while, so I wasn't too worried when her parents allowed her to have one of their houses to herself and her friends for her birthday. Her dad also said that he would do all the cooking and would accommodate all the dietary requests. The day comes, and I decided against taking any extra food with me to cook, since her dad would handle the cooking. And one of our mutual friends, who was the child of our school headmaster, is openly vegetarian. So in the worst case scenario, I could eat veggies, fruits, or bread. We arrive at the house, where her dad has finished with the barbecue. Before food, he informs us that he wants my friend to have an amazing birthday. So he wants us to hand him our phones, and he will return them after the birthday, so we can have a good time as well. The only person exempt was an older friend, a 21-year-old, but that was due to him having a small child left with his fiancée and parents. After, my friend's dad puts a plate filled with meats in front of everyone, and proudly informs us that he made pork, which neither me, the headmaster's kid, or another friend could eat for religious reasons. So I was just enjoying some fruits and veggies when my friend's dad noticed that I hadn't eaten the barbecue that he'd made. The entitled dad then said to me, "You haven't eaten any of the meats. Are you feeling okay?" "Yeah, I'm just not really a fan of pork, and I actually prefer veggies." "Oh, are you a vegetarian as well then?" "Nah, I just don't like the taste and the texture of pork." "Well, in this case, sorry, but you're gonna have to eat it. I've spent most of the day cooking, and it's rude not to try the food that the host has made." Look, I get that, but I really don't like pork, and I'm gonna actually eat something that I do like and can tolerate. You're not making others eat pork because they had their reasons, so why pick me? "Well, their reasons are valid, while yours isn't. You're just being fuzzy. You're not leaving this table or having anything else until you eat my pork." Okay, that is potentially the maddest innuendo. Ignore that, let's carry on. "Well, I guess I won't be leaving then." Then my friend gets involved. "Dad, I've told you she doesn't eat pork and prefers chicken. You said you bought some for her and my other friend." "I only bought pork. She will eat what adults make and needs to stop creating a scene. Now eat." So at this point, I was pretty hungry and decided to try it, since my friend previously said that her dad's cooking is really good. I regretted my decision though with the first bite I took. Not only was it really hard and the meat felt gristly, but it didn't smell good either. As I'm very sensitive to textures, my immediate reaction would be to throw up. So I tried to escape, but the dad wouldn't let me. "You're not going anywhere until you finish your food." "But she's clearly not feeling well." "I don't care. She's not leaving the table until she finishes her food." At this point, I had no other choice but getting sick in front of others, as this pork tasted horrific. I thought the dad would finally let me go, but no. He still expected me to finish that slice of pork that's now covered in my own vomit. Seeing all of this, our older friend texts my parents, asking to pick me up. They're trying to get hold of me, but they can't because, of course, our phones are in different rooms. About 30 minutes later, my dad does arrive, while I'm still sat at that table, covered in God knows what, with my friend's dad still insisting I must finish what I've started, and that if I don't, he'll feed me himself. This guy is a maniac. Finally, my dad comes in. What happened here? Oh my God, are you okay? Why are you crying? At this point, my friend's dad steps back and allows my dad to pick me up and help me get into the car. My dad is visibly confused at the sight of what happened, so he asks questions. So what happened here? What made her sick? Well, she had some pork. Well, she doesn't eat that. Why was she sitting at the table instead of being allowed to go to the bathroom? Because she needs to stop being fussy and eat what is made for everyone, unless she is exempt. So I wanted to make sure that she eats what I'd made, and I didn't want her to ruin my golden seeds. At this point, my dad gets visibly angry. She's nearly an adult and can cook herself, let alone take care of herself, and she knows what she likes and doesn't like. She can eat what she wants and does not need to be treated like a child. Well, she is still a child, otherwise she wouldn't be so fussy. It will only cause problems, and I'm fixing a mistake that you made as a parent. At this point, my dad gets me into the car, so I'm not exactly sure what happened next. He came back later with my phone and we drove off, but he was also still visibly angry. A few days later, my friend called me and started going off about how I'd ruined her perfect birthday, made her dad embarrassed because I'm fussy, and the meat was perfectly fine. Later, the headmaster's daughter told me that nobody actually ate the meat, as they'd all agreed it was badly made and of bad quality. My friend continued that I must have just been jealous of her life, and so on. Needless to say, she was not allowed to stay anymore, and we weren't friends for much longer after that, since her dad believed I was a bad influence. I mean, listen, guys, as I said halfway through that story, that guy, as OP correctly said as well at the start, he's not entitled. I don't even think he's insane. He's almost maniac. What is he? Seriously? Yeah, I guess it's one thing asking OP to eat food that you've made. Obviously, look, you've gone through the trouble of making it completely fine. It'll be annoying if I was to make some food and a lot of people didn't want to eat it. Yeah, I'd probably be a bit annoyed and feel quite bad about myself, and I'd rather them eat it than not. Fine, but then going to the extreme of first forcing them to eat it, that's mad. Secondly, forcing them to stay at the table as they vomit, that's incredibly mad. And then thirdly, not allowing them to leave until they finish the thing that has made them vomit, despite the fact that it's now covered in that vomit. That's up there for me. Comment down below. Can you remember a story I've read where it has or it involves a person quite like this? Top tier crazy bloke, seriously. And clearly your best friend, or you know, whoever she really is, doesn't fall far from the tree. She's literally just, you know, scrounged off your entire family for months on end. Her own family seemingly not even caring about her or what she's doing, just as long as she's with you and you're paying for it all, that's all good. But as soon as it goes the other way and there's a little bit of animosity between you, your best friend, her best friend, and her dad, she's like, no, you caused all of this. Clearly not my entitled, insane, maniac dad. You caused it and your family. We're not going to be mates anymore. What a true friend she is. Now moving on to our second story of today's episode. Mum freaks at swim class. My daughter is 9 months and we recently signed up for swim classes. At her age, it's basically getting them acclimatized to the water so they aren't scared, and slowly getting them to the point that they can eventually float on their back. They do require masks for the parents. It's on the doors, it's in the pamphlets, and they make you watch a session before signing up, so it's not hidden. Well, we're getting ready, and this mum comes in for her kid's first lesson. He's about 15 months. She is unmasked, so the person at the front tells her she needs a mask, but that if she doesn't have any, they have extra. The mum just strolls on by, tells her she's vaccinated, and keeps it moving. The girl was in high school, and you could tell she didn't know what to do. The head person there though is a bit older and seemed like she was no nonsense, but she is awesome, so I never could confirm it till that moment. She goes up to the lady and nicely tells her that she does need a mask. It's required even if you're vaccinated. The lady doesn't like that though and says, now that is ridiculous. She didn't know and she wasn't going to do it. The manager just tells her that that's fine, she can fill out her cancellation, and since she never did a lesson, they'll refund her. But the mum goes ballistic. It was about 20 minutes of absolute craziness. Every cuss word imaginable, which really annoyed another mum who had an 11-month-old and a 3-year-old with her. Yeah, not surprised. She then got into it with that mum about cussing, and it was just a big fiasco. The Karen was yelling at the manager about being a sheep, telling the other mum to stay out of it or else. The manager was just staring, I'm sure in disbelief at just what was happening. The other mum, who was yelling at the Karen about cussing, was also using every single word variant imaginable. Flippin', mother trucker, stuff like that. That must have been a hilarious conversation. One mum just going for it, just completely swearing, not giving two dangs, and this one, using stuff like dang. Wow, great stuff. I did learn that even though my daughter is 9 months old, she thinks craziness is amusing when not involved, because she was just staring and even giggled at one point when the Karen made a sheep noise. I mean, I would too. That is hilarious. After 20 minutes of absurdity, the police show up. The high schooler had called them. It wasn't hard to figure out what was going on, but the funniest thing was the Karen turned and said, "Oh my God, thank goodness, officer, this manager is discriminating against my freedom, and that this lady thinks she can tell me what I can and can't say. Please arrest them." Okay, wow. Well, the next part was pure gold. They'd already talked to the high schooler outside the door, I guess, so they knew what was actually going on. They immediately cuffed the Karen, who just let out this unbelievable shriek. They told her she was under arrest and asked her who they could call to pick up the child, who somehow had sat in his chair the whole time, looking like he was used to this. Yeah, probably because he is used to this. She starts yelling that she isn't going to give out personal information. She knows her rights. Before the cop says anything, the other mum says, "Wow, you're dumber than I thought." Karen didn't like that and immediately lunged at her. The cop tried to stop her and I guess kinda succeeded. He didn't let her get a full head of steam. This allowed the other mum to sidestep and give her a little nudge right into the pool. At that point, I think everyone knew it was best to end things. The instructor helped the lady get out of the pool while she was yelling that she would sue and all sorts of nonsense. The cop hurriedly got her out of there and she eventually gave her their husband's number, who picked up the kid. What an absolute whirlwind that story was. I mean, if you thought getting arrested was bad, getting arrested and then having the wombo combo of being shoved into a pool by a person that you were just arguing with, wow, that is next level. Honestly, I really was not expecting it to go there. Brilliant. I thought, just plain and simple, she's being annoying, not wearing a mask, anti-masker, whatever, gets arrested. Calm, but no, being shoved in the pool to top it all off. Oh my God. She's been shoved into a pool having already been arrested. What? Oh, justice. Justice indeed. Weird woman believes sailboats are public property. I'm a 43-year-old IT guy, divorced with 2 kids, a 9-year-old girl and a 7-year-old boy. I'm also a member of a yacht club, and I own a smallish 34 Bavaria cruiser from 2008. Next to my kids, she's my pride and joy. Every year, I take 3 weeks vacation along with my kids, and we go cruising for the better part of those 3 weeks. We've got a small dinghy that basically serves as our pickup truck or food haul. Now, because of COVID, we couldn't go anywhere outside our home country, so we said, F it, we'll be tourists in our own country, and we went for a cruise to all the small, cozy harbours that we normally don't see. So, cruise is a go. My son knows about the lines and knows how to dock and whatnot. My daughter is the dinghy skipper during this. She loves that thing. We always have our club pennant flying as well as the Jolly Roger. The Jolly Roger means kids on board, come and play. We leave our home ports and spend a day and night at sea to get the sea legs growing and sharpen up on our boating skills. Retired Navy, I can't help it. On our 3rd day, we arrive at a smallish marina, roughly 200 berths. In my country, calling ahead on VHF is not a thing, so the only thing to do is either go in with the boat or send in the dinghy to spot for a berth. Now, occupied berths are marked with a red sign. Available is a green sign. My kids know this, and they are also learning to spot a fitting berth. Our boat is 3.6 meters wide, and the berths are different in width. So the trick is to spot a berth wider than 3.6, but not wider than 4 meters, because that's the golden difference. Any berth wider than 4 meters costs a ton of money and is meant for bigger boats. Well, Captain Dinghy was volunteering, as always, to scout ahead, while me and the executive officer of my boat, my son, were watching from just outside the inlet. She's equipped with, of course, life jacket, radio, not VHF since that requires a certificate, and a good idea about how wide 3.6 meters really is. Our dinghy happens to be 3.5 meters long, so as long as she can fit the dinghy from end to end between the posts, the boat will fit, including the engine. Now, most people that hang around marinas are used to seeing children in dinghies and wouldn't raise an eyebrow over a 9-year-old girl in a small dinghy wearing a life jacket and looking for empty berths. However, not all people are like that, which we would soon find out. She found one and radioed that back, saying, "I've got one, Daddy. It's the Jeep here, and I'm waiting for you here. Over." I reply with, "Good job. En route now. Daddy out." The owners of the boats on either side are the caring, nice older couples, and especially the portside neighbours are completely stunned by Captain Dinghy and her professionalism. They're small talking when we arrive to the berth and help mooring, for which I pay with a cold beer and a soda for the kids. Happy days all around. On the opposite side of the pier, a couple of boats are also flying the Jolly Roger, so the kids are off after a quick lunch. The berth directly opposite us is also available, but knowing from experience, that will soon change. And how right I was. Later in the afternoon, we saw the arrival of HMS Karen and her sailing circus. They arrived while the nice grandparents next door and I were discussing nice marinas to visit, and as a matter of course, we stood by to help receive lines and help with mooring. To simplify their docking, well, it was a trash show. They had a trimaran, a boat with 3 hulls. The outer 2 can retract when you dock and extend when you sail. They knew nothing about the boat, so it was clearly a rental boat. After 5 or 6 attempts of docking with one side retracted, the other side retracted, then no side retracted, full power plus screaming came all around. The harbour master even came down to join us. So now we stand 8 guys plus 1 harbour master, and we're just looking like, what the F are you guys doing? Even my 7-year-old son comes by with some new friends and they say, "Are they for real?" Grandma to our port side quickly provided some ice and soda for the kids. She was amazing. We managed to convince them, the wrecking crew, to throw us the forward lines and we could pull them in after they retracted both pontoons. Now this took the better part of 1.5 hours. When they finally docked, they acted like they invented boating. I know that docking in a foreign port can be quite difficult, but when you need 8 people to help you, well, one might keep a low profile, you'd think. But not that couple though. They were totally clueless about how to get shore power, water, and how to register with the harbour master, who, by the way, happened to stand right in front of them when they docked. So, the harbour master is now trying to guide them in how to register, what to do regarding that shore power and water. And boy, did they listen. Well, no, they didn't. HMS Karen started to full yell instead about how they'd paid a lot of money to rent that boat and how they expected harbour fees to be included in the rent, and then threatened to report the harbour master to the rental company they used and somehow get him fired for trying to extort money from them. After her endless monologue, there were about 8 to 10 guys laughing. The harbour master just looked at them and went, "Okay, these are the rules. Each marina requires a fee for docking. That fee covers power, water, and the space you occupy. It includes access to bathrooms, cooking facilities, and cleaning. Your rental company does not own any marina. Is that clear?" The circus husband understood, but failed to convey the last part to HMS Karen, something we found out later the next morning. Next morning, we prepare to go underway. Kids are saying goodbye to their new friends. My son is pampered with cookies from Grandma Port and Starboard. Broken hearts from the young girls in the marina. He's got blonde hair with curls and green eyes, a true heartbreaker. And Captain Dinghy is getting ready to go underway. She's dressed in the uniform for the part. Unicorn PJ pants, swimwear, and a life jacket. Now here is where the title, which I'll remind you guys is Weird Women Believe Sailboats Are Public Property, comes into play. We're finishing our stay, meaning pulling our shore power cable, testing our lights and systems, testing our bow thruster and prop, VHF and dinghy. But while I'm standing at the stern, ready to single up the lines so my curly-haired executive officer will have an easy job, HMS Karen comes running up to me. "What are you doing?" "Good morning. Yeah, we're gonna get underway now. We're going to an island recommended by our Grandma Ports. Enjoy your stay here." "What? Well, you can't leave?" You're pretty sure I can? Sorry, why wouldn't I?" Because we want that boat. What? You want my boat? Lady, my boat's not for sale. So, excuse me, we have to go. What? No, all boats are property of the rental company, and we called them yesterday and chartered that boat. Now hand it over or else. Lady, you're nuts. I then say to my son, clear forward lines, and to my daughter, meet up outside the marina, docking starboard side. Now we are not attached to the marina anymore, and my son is rolling up the bowlines when HMS tries to grab the push bit to keep us in the marina. Well, she lost that battle. All stop, I say. Man overboard. She came up yelling and screaming. Starboard Grandad guided her on board their boat and asked her what the heck she thought she was doing, while Port Grandad called the harbour master. Is she okay? Yes, we got her. Enjoy your trip, and we'll see you at the new port. We leave and head for that port. And oh boy, did I hope that she was a one-time Karen. But guys, as I said in the intro, unfortunately, that post right there is just the beginning of this story. Look, the scene has now been set. There's a Karen on the high seas, right? That's all we know. She's already, completely mental. That's clear to see. But amazingly, this story does not stop right here. Let's move right into part 2. So then, moving on to the second part of that story. Weird women believe sailboats are public property, part 2. When we left the marina and recovered Captain Dinghy and the dinghy itself, we set sail for the island suggested by Grandma Port. The sail itself was pretty uneventful. The executive officer of the ship, my 7-year-old son, caught a fish, a nice 2-kilogram cod. Wow, that was dinner. That is not uneventful. That's a great catch, mate. Next morning, we had an equally uneventful docking next to a nice young couple that were on their first cruise in her parents' boat. A nice 30-feet boat, beautifully maintained. Now, because the marina had floating docks, we reversed in and lowered the stern. After the usual post-docking exercise, fenders, lines, power, and check-in, we greeted the young couple next to us and checked out the marina. The Jolly Roger was still flying, so there were a couple of young pirates, kids, awaiting to see who the new recruits to the playground were. After a quick lunch, the kids again were off. I was about to shut down the stationary VHF when I heard a call from the Coast Guard advising all mariners to keep a lookout for a stolen boat in the area, with a description vaguely matching my boat, as well as a couple of hundred others. Now, that is not something that happens every day, but I know that a few human beings get confused about the mine and not mine concept, so I took a note of it and turned off the VHF. At around 4 o'clock, I recognized a boat coming in, and was pleased to see Grandma Port from the first post, standing at the stern looking for a spot. I hailed them and saw a spot opposite ours, but with a red tag. A quick call to the local harbour master later. It was owned by a local, but was available for 2 weeks. They just forgot to turn the plate. 15 minutes later, and both of them were sitting in the cockpit of my boat, having a drink with our new friends from next door. I've got to say, guys, boating like this, just, meeting new people, chilling, having a great time, inviting them onto the boat, sending your kids off to other boats, sounds amazing. It sounds like a whale of a time. Anyway, during this drink, we get to hear Grandma Port's story. So, after we left, and they got HMS Karen onto the dry land, she was raging, the Karen that is, that we had tried to kill her, that we'd stolen our own boats, and that she would throw them into a prison cell and throw away the key. Grandma Port just giggled and told her to calm down, that she did that to herself, and what was she thinking grabbing a boat that was pulling out? Grandpa Port told her to get on their boat, change into something dry, and enjoy herself, instead of making a fool of herself in front of her circus husband and their child. Now, I'd never seen that child, but apparently they had a toddler with them, but not a life jacket or vest in sight. As one does, I checked in on the Book of Faces, and about 5 minutes later, I got a text from a guy I used to work with back in the Navy, asking me if I could supply a cold beer in about 10 minutes when he got off shift. One short trip to the mast and flags, Bravo, Echo, first up, Romeo was flying, my friend arrived, in uniform, and asked where the heck his beer was at. We've known each other for the better part of 20 years. So he expected to get the "where the heck have you been, shipmate" back. After the hugging and the "how the heck are you" talk, I introduced him to my new friends and the grandparents. He definitely had Grandma Port on his good side because of the uniform. Even Grandpa Port started telling stories from back then in the Navy. I never told them that I did other than IT, so they didn't know much about my naval background. and they were actually quite amused when my friend told them that I was his old petty officer. After the second round of flags, I asked about the call earlier from the Coast Guard. He's the chief petty officer at the nearby coastal watch station, and the way our Coast Guard and Navy works is that the Navy is in charge of the sea, but the Coast Guard enforces inside coastal waters. And oh boy, he got a call from the local police reporting the theft and possible hijacking of a sailboat from the last port that we were at, as reported from an enraged woman with a description of a boat similar to ours, and that the harbour master knew about it. Grandpa Port just about let out half his drink through his nose when he heard that, and started to raise his voice at my friend, in my defence, and told him what actually happened. That HMS Karen was nuts, that she tried to grab my boat after we pulled out of the slip, and that she was a complete waste of air. Thanks, Grandpa. My friend said to me, "That was you? I don't know. Oh my god, that was you. So now what?" "No worries, I'll call it off and talk to my captain in the morning." Great. I then noticed a police officer walking towards our boat. Yeah, can you do it now? Now, have any of you ever heard the phrase, "the Navy is a small place"? Well, it turned out that my friend was the officer's instructor at boot camp, as I was his. So the officer said, "Sorry, Chief, are the Navy handling this?" "Oh, hi, mate. Yeah, how are you? Care to explain?" Well, we had a report of a theft of a boat, and the harbour master told us that a boat fitting this description pulled in this morning. Well, let's check this out then, shall we? OP, you have your certificates and proof of insurance and ownership with you, right? Yeah, I do, sure. I hand the officer my binder with certificates. Well, nothing to worry about here, but have you by chance seen the boat in question? Before I can say anything, Grandpa Port interjects. "Officer, if that report came from a wet, loud, and wide woman, I have a story to tell you." Of course, he then explains the story from the previous post. Okay, Chief, are you backing this up? As sure as you wouldn't like another go at the pits at boot camp. Yeah, right, Chief. Sorry to bother you guys, but you know how it is. He left after that, and things turned back to normal. The kids got home, dinner, bedtime, sundowner with the neighbours, who now had a lot to talk about. But guys, as I said, that is going to do it for this one. If you do want to see how this story ends with part 3 and part 4, please do check out tomorrow's episode on my channel. Same place, same time. Don't worry about that. If you're very scared about missing it, well, turn on notifications somewhere. Down there, maybe. Click the subscribe button and turn notifications on so you'll be notified about part 2 of this video tomorrow when it gets released. I have to say though, so far, this story is warming up so nicely. Already so much has happened. This Karen is accusing an owner of a boat of stealing that boat. And clearly, we've seen how inept she is on the water and that her entire family have no idea what they're doing by the fact that, you know, she was chucked in the water. I mean, seriously, did she actually think she could push a moving boat back and not get, you know, pushed the other way? Idiotic behavior. Like, imagine that was a car and you were trying to push a car the other way that it was driving. What would happen then? Same sort of a situation here, Karen, apart from this one's on water. Weird woman believes sailboats are public property, part 3. As mentioned in part 1, my boat is a Bavaria 34 cruiser. It used to belong to my grandparents, but when my grandma had her stroke back in 2012, my granddad stopped sailing. They passed in 2013, 3 weeks after each other. Now, Granddad wasn't ill or anything, he just gave up after Grandma passed, after her third and last stroke. Before they passed, they willed the boat to me, because my parents already have a boat, and they knew that I love sailing in her. So it's not that I'm a rich, spoiled brat who just got a boat, but there's many emotions involved when sailing her. I grew up spending summers on their old boats, learning from both Granddad and my dad as how to sail, which eventually led me to my naval career, ending in my retirement from the Navy when I turned 35 and my contract expired. The point being that I always need to convince myself if Grandma would approve if I tried to change something or upgrade. In my mind, it's still their boat in many ways. This year, I spoiled the boat and myself rotten by buying a new chart plotter that integrates all sensors, depth sounder, Windex, autopilot, and AIS. AIS is a system that shows information on other boats as well as your own, similar to what airplanes use. As we already planned to stay for at least 4 days, I thought that this would be the perfect time to upgrade my existing chart plotter for the new one. And as luck still was present, Grandpa Port was an electrician before he retired. So, off to the supermarket I went for the purchase of liquid bunnies to pay said electrician that I just hauled out of retirement for 1 day. Now, the marina we're staying in is rather large, meaning that I either have a long walk followed by a heavy walk back, or I'll have Captain Dinghy give me a lift to the old port and join me for my shopping needs. The supermarket is basically 100 meters from the old port. So, off we went. Her at the helm, I'm in the front acting as a ballast. XO, my son, the executive officer of our ship, was with friends and knew his way around. Also, he knew he had an abundant supply of ice cream available. Thanks again, Grandma Port. We arrive at the supermarket and all is well. Then my daughter just lets out a, freak. It's HMS Karen, yelling at her poor circus husband because apparently the item she wanted is sold out. Now look, I'm not a fan of my children swearing, but this time I think she had a point, so I let it slide. We ducked the heck out of there and went to the checkout, where we found a small gift basket style flower arrangement with a bottle of wine and some chocolate for Grandma Port. We also picked up some cash and a small refill for the pantry. When we'd bagged everything, we left for the dinghy. If only we had run the red light at the crosswalk outside the supermarket. HMS Karen spotted us. Hey, you! I kept walking and said to Captain Dinghy, not happening. Now you get in the dinghy, get your life jacket on, and throw me the rope we use to get goods aboard. Dad, she's nuts. Alright, I'll hook your life jacket up as well when I throw the rope. Hey, I'm talking to you. You're the guy who stole our boat. Don't even think about moving. I'm not letting you get away. I acknowledged the lady. Lady, the mental hospital is not that far from here. I don't know, but it just seemed like the right thing to say. I'm sure someone there would be able to help you. I'm putting on my life jacket and lowering the goods into the dinghy. All I need to do is get onto it via the ladder that we tied up to. That's when I suddenly found myself floating in midair right next to the dinghy. She pushed me. The maniac pushed me off the frickin' dock. Our life vests are the manual type for adults, which means that I have to pull a cord for it to inflate. But the kid vests are the automatic kind that inflate if they get wet. A small chalk tablet that dissolves in water makes sure that they inflate. Very clever. But it still means that I have to unwrap it, test it for 24 hours, and then repack it. And also that means that I'm one life vest short for 24 hours, and I have to replace the CO2 cartridge because it's been in the water. That's no biggie, to be fair, it's only about $6, and I've got a small supply on board the boat. But it's the principle. 2 steps up the ladder and I'm on board the dinghy. Captain Dinghy was amazing. She started the engine and used it to push the boat into the ladder, so I'm on board in no time. What are you doing? Don't even try to escape. And you, little girl, don't even think about trying to touch anything. That's nice, says my daughter, and she reverses out and floors it out the old dock. On our way back to the marina, my daughter just shook her head and said, "What a female dog." Again, she's got a point, so I let it slide. Back in the marina, we tie our boat up and I got a change of clothes. The only casualty was my work phone, so I've got to go back into town to get a new one. Luckily, that's a work expense, but it's a bit annoying reconfiguring everything, including credit cards and such. And I'm sorry, but I'm gonna have to finish this in part 4. Okay, what the heck? This is actually now getting really weird. Like, what a coincidence. Not only am I on a boat right now at the same time that you're listening and watching this video, but secondly, my phone also got wet and I had to like delete it and restore it and pretty much get a new one like the other day. What's going on here? Am I OP? That's my question. But anyway, guys, that is the end of part 3. Part 4 still to come somehow. this Karen is still involved in the story. I guess maybe the OP and their family are just like choosing a pretty normal tourist route, and Karen and her family are kind of going along the same route, just maybe a day or two behind. But the fact that you are just continuing to bump into this Karen is very, very funny. Actually kind of reminds me of when I was a young kid on holiday and I was in Sri Lanka with my family, and we kept bumping in and going to the same hotel as the Sri Lankan cricket team for some reason. So it looked as if we were just following them. Bit of a weird story, but yeah, that's what came to my head. Anyway, part 4. So then, now getting into the final part of this incredible story. Weird woman believes sailboats are public property. Last part. I'm almost sad because, you know, it's been such an adventure, but hey, everything good, I guess, has to come to an end at some point. Here we go. When Captain Dinghy and I returned from the store and got on board, Grandpa Ports was trying to teach my son, XO, how to splice a 3-strand rope, and remarking the fact that I was soaking wet and the captain was bone dry, that had we used a lifeline like that in the dinghy, I wouldn't have fallen off. Thanks, Grandpa Ports. Well, as I went below for a change of clothes, my faithful companion told the grandparents what had happened. Grandma Port hugged Captain Dinghy and asked if she was okay, which was enough to make XO roll with laughter. The grandparents offered to invite us over to their boat for dinner, which we happily accepted. Now, their boat is a bit smaller than ours, but their salon below deck is somehow bigger. Go figure. Seeing as this had been an eventful day, the kids were given free roam to the playground, probably to plot the overthrow of the free world by pirates with the other kids, provided that Captain Dinghy brought the small radio we normally use for docking, so we could call them back when dinner was ready. Grandpa brought out a generous glass of his favourite rum, while he and I discussed terms and conditions regarding the chart plotter replacements and the price in liquid money, and also what the heck happened during today. Grandma Port interjected during her hard work in the galley, supervising us preparing potatoes and cleaning the fish that would be our dinner, that I should call that nice young gentleman that came to visit us on our first day, and maybe ask him if he could help. Grandpa was giggling when I asked if it was a dinner invitation, and if so, was the dress code uniform or casual? Grandma's rolling eyes and the following, "Oh God, men," was enough to make all 3 of us share a laugh. A quick call to my friend from before, and we were 6 persons having dinner in the nicest environment one could have. Grandma, that salmon was cooked to perfection. My friend then invited Grandpa and me out to a small place that served liquid monies in tall glasses, provided we didn't stay out late. My friend's fiance was getting along perfectly with Grandma and the kids, so off we went. We arrived to a small house of fluent currency and found a table. Why not just say, you know, bar, alcohol, I don't know. Anyway, my friend bought the first round and Grandpa told the story about my impromptu flying lesson in the port, at which my friend had this odd look on his face. He excused himself for a minute and brought over a familiar face. Apparently, he spotted his private police friend while ordering and wanted to hear what the options were regarding HMS Karen. Well, as he told the story, the police got a call regarding theft of a boat, assault, and underage sailing of a dinghy. He and his partner was assigned to the call and they responded. When they arrived, they were met by an enraged woman claiming that she'd been assaulted, had a sailboat stolen, and that the perpetrator was aided by an underage girl. When they asked her to elaborate, she started yelling at them. "I already told you, now do your job and arrest them." Now, as she was testing the hearing of people the next town over, a couple of fishermen who had docked further down the pier approached the partner and asked if this was about the assault on the guy who she threw off the pier. This got the attention of both the partner and him. They asked her about the incident and she replied with, "Yes, that's what I've been trying to tell you. We found out that our first boat was too difficult to dock and then we rented a new one. But the previous renter wouldn't give us our boat. Instead, he insulted me, stole our boat, and had an underage child drive him." Mom, as I recall, you claimed someone hijacked your boat. We even had the Navy looking out for them. Did you return your rental to the original place? And did it happen there? But what difference does it make? We rented a boat bigger and better. They had one. We paid more. All boats are owned by the rental company anyway. We had the right to get our boat. Sorry, this woman thinks that every single boat is owned by the same rental company that they used to rent their boat in the first place. Sorry. Absolutely ludicrous. Mom, as I just heard from these people here, you just assaulted a person. not to include risking his life. Now, I need to see some ID, because if we get a report about this from the victim, you're gonna face the charges. Understand?
Don't talk back to me unless you have our boat. I'm not accepting your excuses. Get me my boat.
And so, HMS Karen got a free ride in a smaller, land-ridden boat, but with pretty lights on top. Our new police friend ended his story by saying she was an absolute dog, finishing his pints. Well, no need to say it. Anyway, I got up, went to the bar, and opened up a $100 tab for our new friend in law enforcement. We left right after the "no, I can't accept that" and whatnot, but my friend was firm. When we got back to the marina, the kids were sleeping on board our newfound grandparents' boat, and Grandma and my friend's fiance were laughing like teenage girls. Next morning, the kids said their goodbyes to their new grandparents, exchanged addresses, and we left the marina. We hope to see those ports again next year, but if not, we'll come visit them. I don't know how to end this incredible story better than stay safe, listen to reason, and just because you're a Karen, don't push people into water. And there we go, guys. That is the end of this incredible four-part for OP, two-part video series for me entitled Parent Story. What an amazing adventure. I just want to say a big thank you to OP. Their username is in the description down below for this incredible story. Brilliant stuff. I mean, brilliant stuff. Again, as I mentioned earlier on in the video, right now, at the time you're watching this video, if you watch it on the date it was released, I'll be on a boat quite similar to this at the same time, which is why I wanted to read the story and why it's, a little bit convenient that I'd read this story at this time. And if I've taken a video or something or a picture, I'll chuck it in right now. And I also may have put one in earlier in the video as well. If you want to see more on that, go and check out my Instagram, which is linked down below in the description. I'll be posting stuff there on my story of my trip on a lovely boat. Positive revenge. So, I'm a terrible person by trade. I'm a dealership sales manager, and I'm gonna make this brief. Guys, anyone who starts any story saying that they're a terrible person, well, that's a plus for me. Some good self-deprecation banter, I'm all here for it. Anyway, I managed a digital sales team for a year or so, and I got really close to that team, trained them, grew the team into the #1 in our group, and the #2 for our manufacturer in the region. That's out of 400 plus dealers. Unfortunately, I was let go by my general manager, who runs the dealership, during the start of COVID, over the objections of our group and corporates, because my position cost a ton of money in commission. Yeah, I kind of wrecked my pay plan. So, fast forward a bit. My old team keeps in touch and asks for assistance every now and then, and I'm always happy to help. I genuinely like these people because I care about their professional development. As of yet, nobody has been put in place to replace my old position, but the team is still doing really well. I hired great people and put a lot of effort into training myself out of a job. Now, I have a higher title, more responsibility, and run the entire sales side of a different dealership. So, I get a call from my old team telling me the management upped their pay to compensate for lower volume, but then retracted it after a month. They want to quit and work elsewhere as a result. Now, my current dealer doesn't run a department like theirs, so I have no real need for them, but I still call people I know, and apparently my reputation is better known and more highly regarded than I expected. As a result of those calls, I get interviews for my old team lined up. They're all getting new positions, get to keep working together, and they all get quite large pay bumps. The delicious part? Well, tomorrow, the GM who let me go is going to receive, effective immediately, resignations from his entire digital sales department. Again, this department was the #1 in a group of 15 dealerships. This department accounted for 60 to 70% of the store's sales volume in any given month. Without these trained and capable staff, they're going right back to where they started as far as closing percentage. Now, based on their current numbers, the GM who fired me is looking at losing 30 to 40% of the store's sales volume. He's actually in danger of turning a loss due to all the investment in digital marketing and sales, which won't see anywhere near the ROI to justify it. Mind you, this is a sizable, franchised car dealership. We're talking millions per month when it's all running well. He'll never know that I found the team new jobs. He'll never know that I called in favors, made introductions, and sold the heck out of these people to their new employers. Now, I didn't do this for the revenge. I did it because I care about my old team and their developments. They're amazing at what they do, and they deserve to be paid highly for it, in a lower stress environment than where they were. I got the best revenge I can imagine, and all I had to do was be a decent person and keep cheerleading the team I once helped build and train. And also guys, OP has given us a little update as well. I just got a call from a guy I know who does finance and insurance product stuff, though not for my old employer. "What did you do, bro?" he said. Well, I played coy a bit, asking if anyone there knew it was me. "You know, I used to be GSM up there. I keep in touch, and people are losing their minds. All I heard is the GM's on the warpath. So another employee called me telling me he might need a hookup for a new job. I put 2 and 2 together once I heard and called you. So what did you do?" That is the only fallout I've heard so far. And there we go guys, a quick little positive revenge story for once to start off today's video. I wanted to read the story and I wanted to read it first in today's episode to just prove to you, as you probably already know to be fair, that not all revenge stories have to be malicious. They're not all about going after someone who's wronged you and trying to put them into the ground and just destroy their life like they destroyed yours. Nah, in this one, OP was just being a good bloke. And as a result, he got some cool revenge, kind of on the side. To be fair to OP, like, what a character. To, leave that job, get fired from that job, probably feel horrible about it, but still be in contact with your old team, still, really help them out and ultimately get them better jobs, improving their lives and getting them out of that horrible workplace into a great one. You're an absolute legend. So selfless. Legendary. Alright then, now moving on to our second quickfire revenge tale. I cancelled countless interviews at my old job after they let me go early. I spent just over 5 years working a retail job. I eventually worked my way up and was the hiring scheduling manager at my job. In February of this year, I got a new job that would be starting mid-March. There was about a 6-week gap between when I got my job and when I would be starting. Because I hated it when my co-workers would do it, I didn't want to quit on the spot. So I put in a 6-week notice and let my boss and the owner know that I would train whoever they wanted me to train and help with a smooth transition. Whenever there's a change of management at all, things tend to get rocky for a little bit. My boss has told me that it would be great if I did that, but then immediately locked me out of the system and told me I'd no longer be needed, basically firing me. Of course, I claimed unemployment during this time. What was unfortunate though, is that my email and personal calendar was synced up to the hiring software my old company used. And because I was locked out, I couldn't remove it. I tried blocking everything, but it's an automated software, so it automatically added calendar events and sent me updates on the hiring process of various new people to my email. I contacted my old bosses and I did ask for them to remove me, but they told me tough, essentially, and that was that. Or so I thought. After a few months, I realized that my old job was sending me extremely personal information about new recruits. Social security numbers, phone numbers, emails, more. So I contacted the state and let them know so they could complete an investigation. At this moment, it's still ongoing. But in the meantime, because it had been sending their information to my email, I could see their resumes. For the last 4 months, any candidate who I think might be a good fit, I got in contact with them and explained the situation, letting them know just how annoying of a place my old job is to work. Usually, they thank me. A few have been mad that I have their contact information, rightfully so, I'd be angry too, and most just cancel their interview appointments. Word must have made its way up to my old bosses, because while I was on my lunch break at my new job, my old boss called me to ask if I'd been contacting potential new hires to spread rumors about my old job. I admitted to it, and he said, "After all these years, and after how well we've treated you, this is how you repay us?" I told him to eat poop and I hung up. Shortly after, I got an email finally unsubscribing me from the hiring portal. Victory. Again, quite similar to the first story, you're kind of just doing the right thing here. Look, yeah, maybe it's not your place to be cancelling future interviewers, but come on. It would have taken literally one click of a button to unsubscribe an old ex-worker from their current mailing list. It was just negligence and ultimately laziness. And they were like, you know what, I can't be bothered. I can't be bothered to do something that would spend 5 seconds and not leak loads of really personal and private information. to someone that shouldn't have it. Yeah, what a good business to work for. Great people. And now moving on to our final story, more of a traditional revenge story if you like. Entitled dad sits next to a water slide and expects to not get wet. So, I'm sliding down a water slide. It's about 10 meters high, 20 meters from the beginning to the end of the slide, so you can't just be slow on it. I mean, you can, but not so slow that you don't splash the person that's sitting like 2 meters away from the end of the slide. This dude also wasn't an employee, he was in swim shorts. He came in after us and left before us. Alright, so I slide down lying on my back, going pretty fast. As I landed and swam up, I just see an angry man standing up, rushing towards me, like so fast I wonder how he didn't fall into the pool. Hey, stop making me and my family wet. He and his daughter, but his daughter was rather embarrassed than annoyed. Alright then, go further away from the slide. Don't expect me to make up for it, I replied. Like I would care for your wants. Stop annoying me and my family. Otherwise, you can't slide anymore. And who says that? The rules of the park. It says that you can't slide fast. And where's that written? There. He points at the stairs of the slide. Now, stop annoying my family. So I just go over there to that sign and read the rules. It said that kids up to 10 years are supposed to not be fast and under the supervision of their parents. I then just go up the slide and commit the worst crime ever. Slide down even faster, and with 2 more people. They asked me what that was about, and I just told them. Before we slid, one of my boys explained to me a trick, how to make a big bomb while sliding. Not just a bomb, a big one. Like so big that the entitled dad would be covered in water, in his words. Now yes, I would feel bad for the daughter, but she actually sat away. I think she already knew that we couldn't just stop our crimes at this point. And this boy, well, he didn't lie. We all slid down together, down this massive slide, probably the biggest one there, and the entitled dad got absolutely covered in water. Like before this, he looked like he wasn't even in the water, and now he looked like he'd been out 5 minutes prior. Of course, I wasted my time, and my ears, by listening to his rubbish. Stop ganging up on my family. You know you could all go to jail now. Now, which crime did we apparently commit, I hear you ask? Well, a hate crime. After we slid some more times, and him continuing to look annoyed, like the when you rage in games but don't say anything because you're annoyed type of angry, he ended up just moving away. Yeah, and by the way, I've been there way too many times, that's for sure. Now guys, unfortunately, I'm currently in jail for my hate crimes I committed against his family, for God's sake. Now, amazingly guys, I'm not quite sure why OP has done this, but he said at the end there, if you want, I can make a quick drawing to show the layout of the pool, and he actually has. Now, it's got NSFW by it because the drawing is terrible. But anyway, have a look at this. Actually, sorry, before I show you this, guys, it's blurred right now. Just be warned, if you are good at drawing or you're an artist yourself, this might burn your eyes, okay? I've warned you. Look at this. Well, I mean, the levels of you know, talent, technique, precision, just, you know, absolute natural ability are astonishing. I can barely even comprehend what I'm seeing. But anyway, this is probably the most unnecessary drawing ever. Just a slide, me, splash, and the man. Yeah, that's kind of what I expected. Unnecessary, but I absolutely love it. Thanks, OP. Entitled mum calls the police on me because of my cancer. For some backstory, I live in a small, rather dodgy town near the coast of England, which naturally comes with an unusual amount of entitled chavs and 16-year-old entitled mums. This incident occurred a little over 2 years ago. I hadn't yet been diagnosed at this point, but I was just 1 week later. I'm also noticeably autistic, and anyone who actually pays attention to an interaction with me can easily tell that something is off. Thankfully, I'm high functioning, which means I'm able to function relatively normally in society, but I still have a lot of difficulty being completely oblivious to social cues and such, as well as some few tics here and there. Anyway, onto the story. I was with my mates, we'll call them James and Harry, and it was a relatively sunny day by British standards, so we decided to go into town. All three of us had taken our skateboards with us, thinking we could go down to the beach in the evening and skate along the old concrete docks when it had cleared out for the day. In the meantime, we decided to go get a coffee and then head out to the skate park. Enter the entitled mum of this story and her children. Now, when we arrived at the skate park, we all immediately noticed 3 little crotch goblins. The oldest looked around 6 at most, running around, climbing up the ramps, etc. Now, I am by no means a professional at skating, nor are my friends, but I knew that having 3 little kids running around while we skated was not safe. We were mostly concerned for their safety rather than ours, as we could take a tumble. How else do you learn to skate? But the kids could really get hurt. So I decided to go and ask the eldest kindly where their mum was, and if they could move to the children's park, which was empty and right next to the skate park. Just to interject quickly, guys, I've never been massively into skateboarding myself, but I've been watching it at the Olympics the last week or so. It's been amazing. It's so good. If you haven't seen the Olympic skateboarding, go and watch it. Get the highlights. It's unreal. Now, I hadn't even finished the first word to this kid when all of a sudden I heard a screech from behind me. I turn around to see what's happening, and that's when I see her. Typical chav mum. Badly dyed dark red hair, cheap earrings, hoops so big a gymnast could use them, dressed in a dirty pink onesie. That's what we call single-piece jumpsuit, like pajamas in England. A cigarette in one hand and a cheap Stella beer in the other, furiously walking towards the park. She's looking straight at me as she gets closer to the park, and I decide to ask the kid if that was his mother. Big mistake. As I turn back to face the kid, she suddenly yells, "Get the F away from my kids, you freaking nonce!" Wow, for those of you that don't know, if you're American, nonce is pretty much someone who likes kids, to, put it plainly. At this point, I realize I'm in it for the long run. My friends tried to calm her down and explain, and I was simply asking the kid if he could move to the dedicated kids park, which I repeat, was right next to the skate park. She calms down a bit, but not much. She's still very irate, saying we've got no right to talk to kids at our age. We were barely 16 at the time. We again explained that I was simply asking to know where his mother was, and I would have gladly come to her first if we knew whose kids they were at that point. Now, she's calmed down a little bit, but she's still shooting glares that feel like daggers, and she insinuates, once again, that I am a kid lover. Very strange. I'm annoyed, but to be honest, I'm kind of used to these types of interactions in this town. She gathers up her little hex spawns to, quote, "make sure they're safe," again shooting me daggers, and tells us her kids have the right to play here. Now, we answered that yes, of course, technically they do, but having them around could be potentially dangerous, as we could hit them by accident while skating. Well then, why don't you just skate somewhere else? My mate James said, well, this is the only skate park in town, and the council built it specifically to stop people skating elsewhere and potentially injuring others. I continue. Listen, we just want to make sure your children are safe. There's a park with swings and proper slides instead of having them go down ramps. It's right there. I point next to the skate park. This is the only place that we have to practice safely. And to be honest, I'd even be fine with the kids staying here as long as you keep an eye on them and they don't get in our way. Fine, she says, while I kid you not, blowing cigarette smoke directly into her youngest face. The day goes on without much more happening, just the kids getting in the way occasionally and then crying about not being allowed to use our skateboards, which the mum did make a small fuss about, but it wasn't that bad. Until I sit down at the bench, exhausted from the skating and feeling a migraine coming on, as well as being pretty dizzy. Now, although by this point I hadn't been diagnosed, my doctor previously believed I had high blood pressure that caused these chronic migraines. As a result, I've been given medication that I carried in a small pill box, as I had to take them regularly, as well as some ibuprofen, which I was told to take as soon as I felt a migraine brewing. I'd also started the habit of keeping a few mints in the other compartments of my pill box to wash out the disgusting taste of the pills. James and Harry both came to sit with me, as they knew that I had not been very well recently, having passed out a few times in school and constantly being plagued with vertigo and migraines. I pulled out my pillbox, took my meds with a big gulp of water, and then took a mint, which I offered to both my friends. Then, as each of them took one, that was when we heard it.
Oh my god, how dare you take drugs in front of my kids?
At this point, knowing I'm exhausted, Harry takes the lead. This is just his meds. He's got chronic migraine. That is bull. You chat more poop than my nan's bar. I freaking saw all three of you take them. You're also freaking disgusting, doing drugs in a kid's park in front of my freaking kids. Bear in mind, she is spewing all those swear words that I can't say because YouTube will hate me right in front of her oh so delicate children. At this point, Harry has had enough as all of the previous small pestering has built up and he was done being polite. He actually just burst out laughing. Bruv, those were sweets, you mental idiot. Now please, leave us alone. We were kind enough to not purposefully slam into your kids, even though you didn't keep an eye on them like you said you would. They did the exact opposite of staying out of the way. Then the entitled mum replied, how dare you talk to me like this, you... Wow, that is actually going to have to be censored. Mad word. She then pulled out her phone and said, I'm calling the police. All with a huge grin on her face. Meanwhile, my migraine had taken a turn for the worst. Yeah, I'm not really surprised with all that shouting. I hear her in the background yelling loudly like she was in mortal danger about some kids doing drugs to a poor 999 dispatcher. At this point, I start puking. Like, seriously puking. The vertigo had kicked in and my migraine was at full strength. As I heard her screech, one of them is ODing right in front of me and my kids. You need to send an officer over here right now. Harry and James quickly come to my help. Harry trying to keep me from falling over as I'm dry retching to the point it's making my throat bleed, while James goes to get my water bottle. The entitled mum, upon seeing me unfortunately puke up some blood, looks at me and says, "Oh, that's disgusting." At this point, Harry was trying to get her to calm down and actually help, as I was in a much worse state than he'd ever seen me, asking if she had napkins. She looks at him with the same daggers she'd shown me at the beginning of the day and says, "No. Besides, that's what he deserves for taking drugs in a kid's park. He can die for all I care." Thankfully, this not being the biggest of towns, the police station was just around the corner of the park. And the officers, yes, 5 officers in total, drugs and violence are quite common around here, so they'd taken the call very seriously, had arrived just in time to hear that last interaction. Although they didn't understand the full situation yet, they were still baffled by her words. I passed out right then and there as I saw them approaching me. I came back to relatively quickly. I'd say about 20 to 30 seconds later, and the entitled mum was droning on and on about how I'd clearly taken drugs and was having an overdose or something. Harry and a policeman were now standing over me, while James explained to another the full story. Harry handed me my water bottle along with my pillbox, which the policeman took to inspect. In one compartment was the ibuprofen, clearly identifiable by the bright pink sugar coating on it. In the UK, at least, we have that. I don't know about elsewhere. And in the other, Tic Tacs. Yes, those drugs we supposedly took were none other than Tic Tacs. The officer just looked confused as anything and handed me an ibuprofen, watching me down a full litre of water before checking me over for any injuries and asking if I was feeling okay, to which I nodded and slowly got up. By that time, James had explained everything to the 4 other officers, and they were understanding and patient, considering behind them was an irate woman telling them that he was a freaking liar and that we were so obviously high. In the end, the 5th officer showed the pillbox to the 4 others, who had found nothing while searching my bag. They all looked at the Tic Tac compartment dumbfounded. I heard James say that they are clearly Tic Tacs, and one of the officers just took one out, put it in his mouth to test it, and just smirked. They then walked back my way and handed me the pillbox. The officer then pointed out that I didn't look well at all and was very pale and just offered to walk me back home, as he didn't feel comfortable leaving me to walk that far alone. I gladly accepted the offer and made a big show of offering all the officers a Tic Tac as I left. I'm not sure what happened to the entitled mum, as me and my friends all decided to just go back to mine so I could rest and we could duke it out on Smash Bros. But the 4 officers did stay behind, so I think she got a stern talking to. A few days later, I was brought to hospital, where they discovered that the supposed chronic migraines that had made me pass out were in fact due to leukemia. My days, what a story. Honestly, this is probably one of the most disgusting entitled women that I've ever come across in any of these stories. And what's worse is that being from England myself, I can completely picture and, even hear her voice like rattling in my brain. If you live in England, you'll know exactly the sort of person that OP has met here. Just a horrible human being. That's all I can say. A couple things that I wasn't completely sure on. First off, with the police officer just trying the Tic Tac, I'm not sure if that would happen. Maybe he smelt it or something and was like, no, this actually is a Tic Tac, or could determine it from from the shape, but if I was a police officer there, I probably wouldn't, want to actually risk taking an actual drug. It'd be weird for someone to offer me one, but you never know. Some kids in England are very strange, a little bit risky, but maybe it happened. I'm not sure. What do you reckon? And then secondly, I know the title is Entitled Mum Calls the Police on Me Because of My Cancer, but to be fair, she had no idea that you did have cancer at that point, neither did you. So I think that's a little bit of a stretch of a title, but we do actually have an update from OP about his cancer and what happened after this, as of course, when this story happened, he didn't even know that he did have cancer, and we only just got to, understand at the end that he was diagnosed a week later. So OP says, with so many concern about my health, I feel I should just make a main comment to reassure everyone. I'm 2 years into my treatment now, and I'm much better. The migraines are gone, and I'm almost a whole year post bone marrow transplants. I still take a lot of medication, such as painkillers, antibiotics, and supplements to treat the side effects of the very aggressive treatment I had to undergo due to a specific mutation, as well as some oral chemo as maintenance, both to try and keep me from relapsing, as well as keeping my graft versus host disease in check. Well, good to see OP that you're all right. I mean, that sounds disgusting. Jesus, I'm so sorry, but yeah, good to hear you're on the mend. My ex-coworker told our department about my sex life, so I told her boyfriend she cheated on him. I used to work in a factory. This chick was my age. I thought we were cool. I told her about a time I used a cucumber as a you-know-what. I used a condom, don't worry. I believe that everyone has some wild sex stories, and it's nothing to be ashamed of. Her and my old team would talk about wild things all the time. We'd laugh about it and move on. I quit that job and went back 2 weeks ago thinking I'd want the job again. I saw her in the break room, and I didn't say hi because I was talking with someone else, and I don't want to be rude. I quit that day because I realized I still hated that job. I'm assuming that's why she told the whole department, not just my team, that I screwed a cucumber. I found this out last night through a mutual friend. Normally, I wouldn't let this bother me, but the fact that she told the people who gossip to everyone after I quit struck a nerve. Seemingly because she felt entitled to me saying hi. We weren't even that close. I put up with a whole lot of BS at that job, and I'd be danged if I still had to after I quit. When I worked there, she cheated on her boyfriend, who also worked there, with our co-worker. Everyone knew about it, and they'd brag about it to everyone. I didn't get involved because it wasn't my business. I found her boyfriend's social media last night, and I told him about her cheating. Now she wants to fight me outside of work, and the co-worker she cheated with is mad at me for causing issues for him at work. We all warned them what would happen if they got together. The whole team is chaotic at the moment, which is what my mutual friend texted me. I'm sure that my cucumber story isn't that important anymore. Well, there you go. That is as fair as it gets. That is the definition of an eye for an eye. It's petty, yeah. Is it justified? 100%. As the top comment says right here, living in glass houses and throwing stones is a dangerous business. I completely agree. Why would you do this sort of thing when you know that you're cheating, and you know that the person that you're telling these things about also knows that you're cheating? It's so dumb. Obviously, easiest form of revenge would be that person telling your boyfriend or getting in contact with your boyfriend and saying, yeah, by the way, just so you know, you're being cheated on. How dumb are you? Neighbor blows air horn at dog, and my brother has the sudden desire to practice his guitar on the back porch. So, I've lived in this house for 2 years with my brother. The neighbors work nights and have woken us up every morning they have work. See, their driveway is 5 feet from our bedrooms. They like to take Bluetooth phone calls in their cars when they get home. I can hear these calls on the opposite side of my house, let alone 5 feet away through my bedroom wall. When I got my dog and she started deterring the phone calls by barking at them when she was outside, I kind of thought it was funny. Until the neighbor guy started blowing an air horn at her. The first time I took it as a sign that I was being a bad owner and installed dog bark deterrents outside. Thing is, this guy leaves his house to do yard work once a week and get the mail once a day. I bring her inside whenever I see him outside, but sometimes I don't catch her in time. The dog bark deterrent battery died earlier today too, so I'm relaxing in my living room and here comes the air horn. My brother got sick of it and felt a sudden compulsion to set up his guitar and amp on the back porch. 15 minutes into his impromptu concert, I hear yelling. I go outside and the neighbor is screaming at my brother that he's a jerk and he already spoke to me, a lie, and said that if he's outside, then bring the dog inside. He and the wife, who had been hoovering by the door, storm inside. My brother is considering practicing every afternoon when he comes home from work. Well, yeah, I think it makes complete sense. There's only one way to get better at the electric guitar, and that is to play it extremely loudly when you come home from work. Ideally, outside. Simple as that. It has to be done. Look, these guys know, they must know that they're being inconsiderate. And it probably works both ways, right? You know, if you do work a night shift, then I imagine that the worst part about it is trying to sleep in the day. Well, one of the worst parts for sure. Guys, if you've ever done night shifts, let me know in the comments down below, because I can imagine that there are a lot of natural disturbances. You know, life is obviously louder in the day as more people are awake. But you would think that knowing that, these people wouldn't be loud to their neighbors right in the middle of the morning when they're coming back from their shift, right? Because they know how easy it would be to flip the script, as we're seeing from OP's family. Come on, like the first story, don't throw stones in glass houses. So dumb. You know what I reckon your brother should do? Listen very closely to one of the Bluetooth calls and then make a song all about it and just play it to them. See their reaction then. I bet they'd love it. Ditching a family vacation in favor of going away with my husband. Every year, my family likes to plan a big vacation together. It's usually my mother, my sister, my brother and his wife, my daughter, her husband, and my grandbaby, and finally me and my husband. We also have open invitations to other various relatives. This year, they wanted to do an all-inclusive resort in Aruba. It was settled and tickets were purchased. While I don't mind going on vacation with family, I have some qualms with the various parties who are attending. Let's start with my mother, who is up in age but hasn't really taken the best care of her body. So she has weight problems that have affected her ability to walk. It's also led to sleep apnea. This means that she can't walk very far without taking tons of breaks and will fall asleep anywhere, which isn't a problem, except every time we plan an activity that requires some level of physical fitness, she discourages us from doing it, and she can't take us having fun without her. So we end up scrapping our plans and doing whatever activity she feels she can do. Then there is my brother, who wants to go and can't afford his own way. This leads him to scrounge off my mother to find a way to go. Usually, it plays itself out as he says he is going, his ticket gets bought, and everything else is paid for, and then my mother will have some sort of emergency where we need to help her out. We basically end up giving her close to, if not more than what it costs for my deadbeat brother to go, and then we spend the rest of the vacation paying for him and mum through meals, tickets to attractions, and anything else that tickles their fancy. Now that you have some background, let's get to the jerk/revenge part. As we get closer to the trip, I get rumblings of my mother needing the cash for house repairs. Then my brother has to quit his job to go on the trip because the man won't let him off, and my daughter and her husband booked the honeymoon suite. As all of this is going down and we confirm flights, accommodations, and excursions, I just nod my head and agree. The day of the trip, we all head to the airport and get through security. As everyone turns left to go to their gate, me and my husband turn the opposite way. They start quizzing us as to where we're going and if we're getting something to eat so we can bring them some. So I just turn to them and say, we've decided to go on a cruise out of Miami. See you guys in a couple of weeks. My daughter is irate and says, who is going to watch the baby while we enjoy our second honeymoon? My mother is like, who's going to pay for this for her and pay for that? My brother just looks dumbfounded like he just lost his pet. And they all start to tell me how I'm ruining their vacation and I'm a jerk and stuff. Now this right here is absolute genius. Yes, in this one moment, I have to say that you are being a jerk because you haven't told them about this, and yeah, it's tough on them. However, it's so beautiful and it's completely justified. Like, it's so good. Imagine the look on their faces. They have taken advantage of you for so many years now, probably so many different trips, and yet here we go. Right back in their face, bang. You're leaving them probably in the complete mud because they were reliant on you to pay for everything. Let's be honest, that's what you've always done. That's what they've always relied on you for. What are they going to do now? As you go off gallivanting, enjoying your trip with your money, good for you by the way, they are just completely fricked. And that is what I love to see. A taste of your own medicine. phenomenal stuff. I mean, their actions, to be honest, just confirmed, right, how each of them individually planned to take advantage of you. It's right there for you. The reasons for you doing what you did were literally stated back to you as you left and did your own thing. So obvious. Like, if you had any doubts about if what you were doing was right or wrong, there you go. Confirmed. You did the right thing. Phenomenal revenge. Creep learns to not ask girls for nudes. This is an older story, but something on Today I Effed Up reminded me of it, and I figured it was worth sharing. So, we'll call Creeper Kevin because he was an idiot, and this concerns my older sister, who I'll call Susan. Kevin lived across the street and was friends with my brother. His mum was friends with our mum, and we regularly babysat his little sister. I think it started when we went camping. We got him to go over and feed the cats and fish and water the plants while we were gone. And when we got back, Susan found that someone had been in her underwear drawer. And if I remember correctly, there was a pair missing, but we never really got any confirmation. Well, don't ask how because I don't know, but Kevin had Susan's phone number and he started asking for nudes. Susan showed our parents, and the way they saw it, there were two options. They could tell his mum, and we knew that she would absolutely kill him, or we could screw with him. Susan chose that option. He asked for a hot pic. She sent him a picture of the stovetop with one of the burners on. He asked for a nude. She sent a picture of an ankle. He wanted more explicit, so she obliged. She sent him a picture of a thigh in spandex. He wanted more, so she sent him a picture of a nipple. He didn't ask again, and we let that brew for about a week. Then we told his mum, and she was ready to rip his head off, but then we told her what we did, and we sent him the same pictures, but this time they weren't cropped. You see, dear reader, those weren't pictures of Susan. They were pictures of my bio dad. So that thigh in spandex was his hairy thigh in these spandex boxer things he used for his back, and that nitpick the kid jerked off to was a hairy man nipple. His mum was howling with laughter. She did have a sit down with him, and she noticed that he wasn't disappearing to his room for a nap for a good long while, and his showers were much shorter. We're pretty sure he was traumatized for life, and he never asked my sister for another picture. Once he asked for one from a girl that she knew, but obviously Susan told her friends about what happened, and the friends sent him the same zoomed-in nitpic. We never heard about him asking another girl for pics. Oh my, this is a hands-on head moment for me. Oh, can you imagine? Can you imagine having a fun time, with yourself over a picture that you think, an attractive girl has sent to you, and then you find out that it's a hairy man nipple. How can you ever look at yourself in the mirror again? I mean, it's just ridiculous. Unbelievable. And also, the fact that he's then continued on asking other girls for nudes and has had that hairy nipple sent back to him again is so good. Look, obviously the guy's a complete creep, but he is going to be traumatized for a long time. Imagine jerking off over that. Oh, it's crazy. It really is. And now for our final petty revenge post of this episode. Steal my parking space. Enjoy the fine. Me and my girlfriend started renting an apartment in August. My girlfriend had a few weeks left of her job, a city over, and due to that, my girlfriend needed a car. Since she worked late evenings, it would be almost impossible for her to find a parking space close to our apartment at roughly 9 p.m, since all parking spaces would be filled at about 4:30 p.m. So we both decided to pay $90 a month for the parking garage under our apartment. After a few weeks, my girlfriend started working closer to our home, and the need for a car disappeared. The lease wasn't up on the parking space, so we decided to use it as a reserve space in case friends or family came over. Since the space is usually empty, people started parking in it. We usually would call parking security and they'd put a fine on the car. But this time I chose to be nice. A blacked out BMW was parked in our space, and I found out who owned it. I called them with the intention of asking them to move the car politely. The owner of the car was a 30-year-old man. I rang him up and he picked up the phone. Silence. He was silent for a solid 5 seconds before I hesitantly said, "Hello?" He responded, "Who is it?" in an annoyed voice. "Hello, my name is OP. OP who? From what company? Oh, I'm not from a company. I just live in the same apartment complex as you and was wondering. Go the frick away, he interrupted. Then he hung up the phone. I then called parking security and 10 minutes later, there was an $80 fine on his car. I tried calling him again to tell him that there was a fine on his car and a tow truck would be there to pick it up later that evening if he didn't move it from our spots. But when I called him up, I got a very warm and pleasant response. Stop freaking calling me! And he hung up. Later that evening, I saw a nice blacked out BMW on the back of a tow truck. Oh, and a little update to when this one as well. One of the other times this happened, I took a photo of the car. I just remembered that I still have the photo, so I looked at the license plate, and it turns out, same last name as this new guy. I looked up the person and they're related. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree, I guess. Oh wow, I mean, yeah, this is good revenge, but it's not really revenge at all, is it, if we're being honest with each other? This is just what you would do in this situation. Ultimately, you didn't even have to be polite in the first place. But you were, and he still didn't really care. I mean, maybe he's one of those people that just won't even care about the fine or the fact that his car's been towed. I mean, surely not, right? Surely it's worth just, you've heard that someone's from your apartment. Are you that much of an arrogant idiot? And I want to say something a lot stronger there, but I'm not going to swear. That just says, oh, I don't care from my apartment, just F off. And then you get that same call again and you still are not like inquisitive at least, or maybe someone needs your help or something like that. Or perhaps you realize that you've parked in a space that you don't pay for or own. Maybe it's to do with that. I mean, come on. It's ridiculous. And yeah, ultimately the guy's car deserved to be towed. What an absolute tool. It's funny, I'm just looking through the comments. A lot of people are saying that, oh, what a surprise the guy's insert swear word here. He drives a BMW. Tough. Do you agree? Get in the comments down below. I don't know about that. I don't know too much about cars, but I know that BMW drivers do have quite a bad rep. But yeah, there we go. Am I the jerk for giving a fake name at Starbucks? Alright, so I am a 22-year-old man and I think this whole thing is ridiculous. But my girlfriend is really angry at me, so here we go. I don't like giving my real name at places like Starbucks and similar stores where they shout out your name when the order's ready. I can't tell you why. I have a normal, reasonably common name that I like fine enough, but for some reason it majorly creeps me out when a barista shouts my name through a room full of strangers. I guess it's just some harmless quirk I have, at least to me. So whenever I'm at a store where they want your name, I say it's Tom. That's literally the name I use. Nothing inappropriate or outlandish, just plain Tom. I know I am meant when they call it, as I always use the same one, so there's no confusion or anything. They yell Tom, I get my drink or my food, and it's never been a problem until now. A couple of days ago, I was at Starbucks with my new girlfriend and ordered our drinks while she sat down. I gave them my fake name, as always, and when our order was ready and they shouted Tom, I went and got it. My girlfriend was a bit confused and asked me if I went and got someone else's order, which is fair enough. So I explained the thing to her and thought that was that. But she got really angry. She says it's really disrespectful to lie like that, and that I am making everybody in the store out to be creeps who will do something bad if they know my name, which is not at all what's happening. I just don't like when they yell my real name, so I found a harmless way to get around that. But she can't see it like that. She thinks I'm a pathological liar who is way too suspicious of everyone and I need to stop. I really can't see the problem she has. It's really not that deep. I don't think I'm hurting anyone, or am I? So yeah, I'm really confused by her reaction and asking myself if I'm the jerk after all, for some reason I can't comprehend. So Reddit, am I the jerk for giving a fake name? No, in my opinion, you're not. It's not as if you're giving a stupid name, right? If you were taking the mick and just trying to be funny and cool and trendy, then I say, yeah, you are in the wrong, because there's no need to do that. However, nobody is getting offended by the name Tom, are they? That's completely fine. Your reasoning is completely fine. If you fully explain this to your girlfriend and she doesn't get it, then suck her off, mate. She's clearly weird. It's very easy to understand why you do this. And by the way, it's fine if she doesn't agree. Your reasoning makes sense. If she doesn't understand that, that's on her. Am I the jerk for telling my husband I find him disgusting and I want us to sleep in separate beds? My husband and I welcomed our second child 4 months ago. With having a new baby, I'm extra cautious about germs and cleaning. This got me thinking about my husband's shower routine. He would take a shower in the morning and go off to work. He's a chemist, so mostly desk job, but sometimes he walks outside from one building to the next. They're less than a block away. We live in humid, hot Florida, so of course that adds some inevitable perspiration to the equation. He's also a manager, so he deals with people all day long. I've tried to bring up the subject of him taking a quick shower when he gets home from work, or even just before bed. He says that he does not need to take another shower since he showered in the morning. I try to explain that I don't feel comfortable with him laying in the bed because I lay our baby there sometimes, and I feel like the bed sheets are dirty by him laying on them. Same with our comforter. No, the baby sleeps in a bassinet safely next to me, but during the day I will lay him on the bed while I do chores around him, like folding laundry, etc. I realise that everybody has their own routines, but I've washed my hair in the morning, showered and gone through the day. At the end of it, I'm feeling dirty, grimy, and I'm in need of a shower before bed. How can he be okay with having gone through the whole day and not feel like he should shower? I finally told him I'm not comfortable with him laying in bed dirty, so he should sleep in the guest room. I have OCPD, so it's really hard for me to not have things be the way I feel they should be in my mind. In my mind, it's disgusting for him to lay in bed dirty, but what do you guys think? Am I the jerk? Sorry, saying that you have OCPD is that's not an excuse. Sorry, it isn't. A lot of people have that. That's not OCD. That's just liking things done the way that you like them in order, which the majority of people like. I mean, maybe I'm getting that wrong. I'll have a quick look at what OCPD really is, but I would say myself that I have that. And you can't say, no, you have to have 2 showers a day because I have OCPD. That's insane. The primary difference is that OCD includes obsessions and compulsions, while OCPD does not. That's kind of what I think. Like, OCPD is more of just a preference, really. OCD is you are characterized by intrusive thoughts. So having OCD is one thing. That is a mental disorder. Having OCPD and liking things done the way that you like them, I mean, come on. You can't force a man to have 2 showers a day. I have a shower once a day in the evening, and that's it. Personally, I don't really understand the morning shower banter. I know a lot of people do. You want to get up, you want to get fresh for the day. Maybe you disagree. Let me know in the comments down below. Really interesting discussion there about the benefits of showering at different times of the day. That is what I love to bring to you guys on this channel. But nonetheless, the way you've gone about this and telling your husband that you find him disgusting because he only wants to shower once a day, yeah, pretty crazy. Also, why not just put your kid somewhere else if it's that much of an issue? There are workarounds here. You don't have to say, I find you disgusting, sleep in another bed. Am I the jerk for kicking out my girlfriend and her son after she invited her ex into our home? Me and my girlfriend, Sarah, have been together for 4 years. She has a son, Nathan, who is 9, with her ex, Mark. Sarah has full custody of Nathan, with her ex having scheduled visitations 1 weekend of every month. Sarah and Nathan moved in with me a little over a year and a half ago, and from my perspective, it was a little rocky at first. I've always been pretty protective of my space, so making room for 2 other people was difficult for me. When Sarah moved in with me, we agreed that the visitations for Mark would be held in our apartment as long as I'm home. The main reason I wanted this is because I don't know Mark that well, and I don't really want him wandering around our apartment without me there. When we proposed this idea to Mark, he was fine with it. Now moving on to the real issue. 3 weeks ago marked 4 months since Mark's last visit, so I'd asked Sarah when he was planning on visiting Nathan. My girlfriend replied by shrugging her shoulders and telling me she'd ask. She never followed up with it. So a few days ago, I asked when Mark's next visit was, and Sarah said she'd tell me when she knew. Nathan was in the living room but had apparently overheard us and shouted something along the lines of, "Dad was here last weekend, remember?" Sarah's face immediately dropped, and when I asked what Nathan meant, she wouldn't give me a direct answer. Eventually, she ended up telling me that for the past 2 visits, Mark had been to our apartment when I was working. When I accused her of going back on our agreement, she kept telling me this was her home too, and she could invite whoever she wanted, and that it was fine because she was here and watching. I told her that was besides the point, and she violated my trust. It blew up into a huge argument, which ended in me telling her to get out of my apartment. She packed up and left with Nathan. Last I heard, she was staying with her parents. I've gotten several messages from both Sarah and her parents calling me a jerk for kicking her and Nathan out of their home for something so small. She's even been blasting me on Instagram and Facebook about how horrible I am to do this to her. It's got me thinking that I might be the jerk, but I'm not entirely sure yet. Am I? No, you're definitely not. I mean, there's no doubt about it. You had a verbal agreement, sure, but an agreement with your partner, and she's gone against it. Simple as that. You're allowed to get angry at that. Like, she's been lying to your face for a few months. It's terrible form, and yeah, I'd kick her out too. I think that's completely fair. I really do. I don't think there's much more to say than that. I think importantly as well, you said that it's your apartment that they've moved into. Now, look, obviously, you're in a relationship, and by you saying that, you are kind of, cohabiting, and it has to be their apartment as much as it's yours. And, well, definitely your girlfriend's as much as it is yours. But you do own it at the end of the day. It is yours. So if there is some sort of conflict and it comes to you as to a decision as to what you want to do in terms of your living space, and if you don't feel comfortable living with your girlfriend at this moment in time, then you can say, sorry, you need to move out. You can't be the jerk for kicking her out. Sorry. And look, it sounds as if she can go to her mum's for a bit as well, but it's not ideal. She's been lying to your face for a few months. Get her gone. Am I the jerk for not fighting for my daughter to be valedictorian? My daughter's school did not choose her to be valedictorian for graduation, and she is still salty about it. Her high school normally goes with the highest grade point average, but it can be between the top 5 students if one demonstrates high academic achievement, like winning a competition. My daughter was the leader of and won a national robotics competition, and being the top 1 to 2 students, she was sure she would get valedictorian. But the school broke away from their criteria by choosing a girl who'd been in a car crash caused by a hit-and-run driver. The girl wasn't badly injured, but her mum died from the accident, and she went on to finish the year with good grades. She wasn't in the top 5 students and only took 1 AP class, whereas most previous valedictorians came from the IB or full AP course load. My son was valedictorian 4 years prior and also did full IB. So my daughter was really angry when she found out because she felt like it was unfair, and also thought it was racist because kids and parents have been complaining that only Asian students ever got the award. According to her, the last 8 years it was always an Asian who had won, and while my daughter is half Asian, so is my son, the school was trying to find a non-Asian to appease the families. She said she would have been okay with the other 5 top students winning, but to give it to someone with just above average grades when the criteria was about academics made her feel like she and the other 5, which according to her were all Asians, were discriminated against. I don't know if this is true, and I understand why it's unfair, and even agree with it to an extent. But the girl lost her mother and still finished the year with good grades, and that should be recognised. Also, the valedictorian has been made public, and if my daughter tried to get it overturned, it would make her look like a sore loser. I did explain all of this to her, and I told her that she was going to MIT already with a partial scholarship, and everybody knew she was smart. She needs to accept sometimes that unfair things happen. She was extremely angry at me for not going to the principal about this, and my wife was also angry because she felt like the school discriminated against our daughter. She's now in her first semester at MIT, and while she likes it, she says that most people in her classes were valedictorians in their high schools, and she feels like she was robbed when she worked so hard. I thought she'd forget about it, but she seems to still be angry and not as close to me as before. So, am I the jerk for not talking to her school about this when I could? That right there is called life. Life is not fair. It sounds like she deserves to be valedictorian. Fair play to her, she worked very hard, and I can fully understand from her perspective that it's quite sad to not get this. And yeah, maybe it's a little bit strange that she's still going on about this despite the fact that she's now in college, and surely you would have thought she got over it, but moved on to better things, but clearly not. However, I can understand that she's worked very hard for something that she feels like she's owed and she hasn't got it, and that's irked her. But she's not the first person that's happened to, and she won't be the last, not just with valedictorians, but in life. I'll be honest, I don't know how important or meaningful valedictorians are in American high schools. You'll have to let me know in the comments down below. But I mean, we have something similar, I think, which is like head boy, head girl in school, and people really want to get that sort of stuff, but sometimes they don't, even though they deserve it. And by the way, the person that did actually get it is pretty astonishing, right? I would say they deserve it more than Opie's daughter, to be completely honest. Like, your mum was killed, you were in the car, yet you still do really well in school. Is that not more deserving of someone that had a nice, normal life, their parents are still alive, and they did better academically? I don't know. It's a tough spot, but I think for this argument, it seems reasonable. The only thing that I could say was that if you really wanted to, you could ask a question about the Asian thing and the discrimination. I mean, I don't see how it can be, but who knows? I mean, we're missing context here. I think really your daughter is clutching at straws a little bit with that, but who knows? I mean, there could be more to that. But yeah, I don't think that's reason enough to say that, no, you should have really gone to the school and protested and said, what's going on here? The fact of the matter is, someone else won it, and that's life. I mean, can you imagine though, if you did protest, how bad that would look? You're protesting against someone who's, I mean, I don't know, it's not funny. It's kind of funny, as in like the irony of the whole situation. You protesting against a girl that did so well after her mum was killed in front of her about her being a valedictorian because your daughter got better grades. How bad would that look? So yes, good thing that you didn't do that, let's be completely honest. And yeah, as I said, that is life. Entitled sister-in-law tries to take credit for large cancer fundraiser donation. So, context. My mother has a friend that has terminal cancer. She got diagnosed about a year or so ago, and it recently went terminal. She only has a few months left. So, her friends and family decided to have a fundraiser in her honor to help cover medical/afterlife/bucket list costs, as well as help the family out after she passes. This lady is an amazing person. Everyone in town knows and loves her. She's a hairdresser and has been doing my mum's hair for ages. My mum has been a big part of the planning and fundraising for this event. There are a handful of this woman's friends and family taking part in it. However, most of them live an hour or so away, so the businesses and people they are getting donations from are not in our town and they don't know anyone. So, my mum took it upon herself to call dang near every business in town. Family-owned shops and restaurants, chain shops and restaurants, travel agencies, insurance agencies, big places of employment, etc., as well as donations from the general public. She even got our local Walmart to donate. She's gotten everything from small items, gift cards, whole baskets, massages, discounts. She even got our local airport to donate 2 30-minute airplane rides around our country. That is phenomenal. And the latest place to donate was our bowling alley. The guy who runs and owns the place is amazing. He also coaches both our high school bowling teams. When my mum called him, he said that he's going to take a bit to think about what to donate because he wants to do something other than just a free bowl or two. He ended up ordering 2 new bowling balls and is donating them along with 2 one-hour bowling parties for 10 bowlers. That's like a $400 donation overall, at least. So anyway, he told her last week when he called to confirm what he's donating to call back in a week, today, to check if it's in and if she can come and pick it up. She's been posting thanks on Facebook for the donators and telling them what they've donated to kind of give a peek at what the auction baskets will include. So she called today to ask if it's in and if and when she can pick it up. She was informed then that someone already had. My mum was not made aware that someone else was picking it up. She posted about the donation on Facebook and added in the group chat that they have for their friends and family. No one outside of that chat knew that she hadn't picked them up yet. So she messaged them all asking if one of them had grabbed it and forgot to tell her. But they had no clue what she was talking about. We thought maybe some jackwagon saw the post and decided to take it for themselves. I called the owner and asked if he knew who picked the stuff up, and he said Janet. He said that since she was family, he thought that we'd sent her. My mum texted the group chat asking if anyone knew who she was, and it turns out that she is the woman's husband's sister. This sister is not in any of the group chats and hasn't attended any of the meetings regarding the fundraiser or the planning. The woman's daughter is in the group chat and is very active in the planning and the fundraising. She called her mum and asked if she heard from the sister and if she's seen the bowling balls or certificates, and her mum said that the sister had actually brought them to her home, saying that she had got this huge donation from the bowling alley. Now, none of the other donations have been going to her house. We don't want to clutter up her house and cause her stress trying to help plan, so the friends and family have been keeping the stuff at their houses until it's time for the fundraiser. So there's no other reason for her to take them to her house other than to take credit for it. I just don't understand why she would take it upon herself to go and pick up a huge donation that she didn't take part in without telling my mother, the one who got the donation, that she didn't need to go and pick it up because she had it covered. She took it straight to the woman's house without asking the group that's planning where we're storing the donations. And she didn't tell anyone that she took it. She doesn't even live in our town. She lives 30 minutes away, so she had to go so out of her way to pick this up. She took it to her sister-in-law's house, trying to take credit for this huge donation when she hasn't put in a lick of work for this fundraiser, and left us worried that someone else had just taken our donation and ran off with it. Honestly, after reading this, I kind of would have rathered it be someone just steal the donation and keep it for themselves. This, if anything, is worse. At least if someone went and just stole the donation, you'd say, you know what, that's a real shame. Isn't it so sad that these things happen and people out there exist? It's terrible. However, what the sister-in-law has actually done here is try to just completely devalue the entirety of your mum's work and the number of other donations that have been made from, an insane amount of people, it sounds like. If she is claiming this as her own, what does that then mean for everybody else who's actually done the work? Do you kind of get what I'm saying? So yeah, although I'm sure you'll get the donation back and that's unbelievable, the fact that she has put this doubt perhaps into the woman's mind, into everyone else's mind about who's actually raising the money or what's going on here is crazy. It's so much more selfish than if some randomer had just stolen the donation in the first place. She knows the level that your mum has gone to, the effort that your mum has put in to get these unbelievable donations. Yet she's still done this. The audacity. Not just the program that I'm using to record this audio on right now, niche joke, but the audacity. I am at a loss as to what to do with my wife's request. My wife and I have been married since 2001 and been together since 1999. She is the most intelligent, thoughtful, caring, loyal person I know, and I've always thought of myself as fortunate to have met and married her. She is, even today, aesthetically beautiful, and men have told her this throughout our marriage. She's always shot them down. Now, earlier this year, she was diagnosed with uterine cancer, stage 1, and had a full hysterectomy. I was never concerned about the cancer. It was diagnosed early, dealt with quickly, and she made a full recovery. I took time off work to look after her after the surgery, and all seemed well. There were some to be expected emotional instances on her parts, and although I am not an emotional person, we dealt with them together. After her recovery, she was insistent that we start living life to the fullest, and took a 10-day trip to Europe, followed by a trip to Belize. We also have a trip to the UK and Spain and Portugal later this year. Now, I'm fine with these things, building memories and crossing bucket list adventures off of her and our list. I also understand that these are a result of feeling fragile on her part. She also took up yoga, swimming, and healthy cooking classes. I was fully on board until last week. Last week, she came home from work and told me she wanted a hall pass, a one-time opportunity for her to have sex with someone else besides me. She said that since her cancer diagnosis, her outlook on life has changed and she doesn't want to be handcuffed from doing things she wants to do. She explained that there's a guy at her work that she's always had some attraction to. He is leaving the company and she'll never see him again, so this is the perfect opportunity to sleep with someone else. She said that I could say no, of course, but that she would be mad and disappointed at me for an indeterminate amount of time, and that it would be confirmation of my male toxicity and insecurity. I don't consider myself to be toxic, and if not wanting your wife of 20 plus years to have sex with someone else is insecure, then guess I'm insecure. I told her that I appreciated her talking to me about this, but approval via coercion is not approval. I also said that I do not appreciate her language in describing my, as of yet, unknown reaction to this very large issue that could affect the rest of our marriage and life. I got up in the morning and she basically said that she was sorry for putting such a large decision solely on my shoulders, and that to help, she was taking the decision away from me. She booked a hotel near where her co-workers are having a party / send-off for this guy, and she would spend the night there with him and hoped that I would be here when she got back. That she would answer any questions I have about the night after it happened, but not before. She will not tell me who he is or anything about him because she knows me too well and that I will dwell and obsess over him, and that would make it too real for me, which is pretty accurate. Her POV is that the less I know, the better, which contradicts the offer to tell me anything I want to know after it happened. I think she knows I won't want to know or ask anything, or she simply just won't tell me. Part of me thinks at least she's been honest with me, and she's been through a lot since finding out she had cancer, so maybe I should just let it happen. I certainly have no concept of what she went through, so I cannot dismiss how this affected her mental state or outlook on life. Part of me wants to put my foot down and say this is not going to happen and deal with those consequences when they happen. Her BFF called me callous for even suggesting that I wouldn't let it happen because I have no idea what she went through. I find it hard to believe that she is okay with the possibility of throwing away 20 plus years of marriage over some guy that she has had no relationship with outside of work, and that I should just call her bluff. Maybe she thinks similarly, that I won't throw away the marriage because of one encounter. I just don't know what to do. I empathize with her, and then an instant later, I'm angry with her. Part of me wants to know who this guy is. What does he look like? What has he got that is so enthralling for her? Is he just a safe option? Is he married? Does his wife know? Would I be a callous jerk for saying no? What can I do besides walking away? Okay, now, where do we even begin? Now, of course, this is best of Redditor updates, so we're gonna get a lot more content here. But off the rip, I've gotta say, what a load of absolute rubbish. I know multiple people, multiple couples in which one of them has gone through cancer and they survive. And they don't just then go, you know what? Yeah, I've survived this. I'm not going to go around shagging like a legend. They just don't do that. It's very abnormal. Now, the whole part about your wife ticking things off your and her collective bucket list is great. Traveling, making her realize and making you guys realize that life is short. It can end at any moment. It's good to do things you want to do whilst you have the chance to do them. Completely fine until you get to having sex with one of your co-workers, forcing your husband to be okay with it. That's probably a little bit too far. At that point, I think, how about just end the marriage and move on with your life? It's just very, very strange. What I love the most, and by love I mean just cannot get at all, is her saying, no, you have to let me do this because, by the way, I had cancer and therefore you have to let me cheat on you. It's on you. Like her saying, you know what, I'm just going to take the decision out of your hands. Don't worry. I'll just take the decision out of your hands. Don't worry about me. It's so great. I love it. Nonetheless, let's carry on and let's get into this comment which was posted on the original, which I think is really, really good. Kind of think this is the way your marriage will be from now on. With her epiphany, she wants to relive her life and she's going to do it regardless of your feelings. I think she's being rather selfish and probably only threatens this because she thinks you are beaten down and will simply put up with it. Perhaps not the best time for trips and frills. She wants a single life. Let her see what that means. I agree. I feel like, obviously it's very, very tough for you. And I completely understand what you're going through in the sense that you say that 1 second you're like, no way am I ever going to let her do this. I'm going to call her bluff. Go and do it. She won't. And then the next you're like, oh, well, I do love her so much. And she did also have cancer. That's going to be very mentally taxing. Oh, by the way, I'm not for 1 second saying that I know what that's like or how it feels or I can empathize with that in any way. I obviously can't. But I agree with this commenter. It gets to a stage where you got to just say to her, yeah, obviously you're not allowed to do this. I don't care. And also, what's your best friend saying about you can't not let her do this? She had cancer. Again, terrible friend. Sorry, very obvious. You have to call her bluff. You have to just say, you know what, this is going to hurt me, but go and do it. And if you do it, that's the end. It is weird though. 20 plus years of marriage and that. Wow. Now, OP has actually replied to a couple of comments from the original saying this. She thinks because she'll never see this guy again and that I've never met him, supposedly, that it won't really affect me or our marriage in the long term. I'm left with accepting it and never viewing her the same way again, or going through a divorce at 54. Not really great options on either front. That is a very fair point. I don't know where her head is, and the bout with cancer is affecting her in ways that I couldn't possibly imagine. I don't think she believes I will leave. There we go. I mean, you've pretty much said exactly what I think there. You have to test that though. If she doesn't think that you'll leave, you have to actually leave and then see what her reaction is. Because then, if she goes and does this thing anyway, you know that sadly, very, very sad and painfully, though it may be, it was the right decision for you to do that. Because otherwise you'd just be a massive cuck. And secondly, you have to test that. You just have to, because you can't just get away with stuff like this for the rest of your life together. Because even if you do stay together, you'll just be miserable. So unfortunately, that is the only thing you can really do. Now, let's get into the update that was posted just a few days later. I received a ton of advice that I couldn't possibly respond to. I do appreciate the people who took time to offer advice in the comments, all via PM. It's been an exhausting couple of days. I was hoping that my opposition to her plans would give her pause, but unfortunately, that did not happen. I said I am a hard no, and I'm not sure how I will feel about you if you go ahead with it. I was met once again with, this is for me, it will be one time. What can I say to help you deal with it? You'll get over it. We were meant to be regardless of the situation. Remarks leading up to Saturday. Some of the most selfish words there that I've ever heard, despite the fact that this woman went through cancer. At this point, I honestly don't really care. That's insane. So she left on Saturday, ostensibly to meet her co-workers, but in reality to screw the guy. I asked her to text me when she was leaving for the bar, and when she did, I asked her if she was really going to go through with this. After her response was this, I'm not answering any more questions tonight. I will see you tomorrow. I blocked my wife. Then I did something either stupid or brilliant. I went to the bar where the get-together was happening. You know what? I love this. Well, not the bar, but a transit bench across the street. I waited for a long time. It was running through my mind leading up to this event that I need to know who this guy was. Maybe to compare myself against him, to see what he had that I do not. It was driving me crazy not knowing who he was and what was so special about him that she would ruin a marriage for. After what seemed like an eternity, a woman that I recognized from my wife's office left the bar and got in a cab. Soon, other people started filing out and a whole group came out and people were hugging a man and shaking his hand. I assumed that I had my guy. I didn't see my wife and I had a brief thought that maybe she had called it off. I unblocked her, but there were no messages. Everyone said their goodbyes and left. The dude was standing outside for a few minutes and then my wife came out. She looked around, took his hand, and they started walking away together. Of all the emotions I went through, trepidation, sadness, anger, it was disgust that really encapsulated the event for me. This guy was short, fat, and bald. All the things I cannot compete with. Ultimately, I felt like a pervert for watching from a distance. I followed until they got to the hotel and then turned around and went home. I woke up Sunday morning and put a lock on the master bedroom door. I moved her things to the spare room and left a note asking her to find another accommodation as quickly as possible. I visited another friend who's a lawyer and he gave me some sage advice and a couple of recommendations for divorce attorneys and made the introductions. My wife has been calling me numerous times since around 11 or so. Once blocked, the calls go to voicemail. I listened to the first couple but felt nothing but some satisfaction when she couldn't get through to me and she was obviously becoming concerned. I didn't want to go home, but I left in such a hurry that I didn't plan an overnight properly. I got home around 9 and as per my buddy's advice, I recorded the interaction. I was halfway up the stairs when she came up from the family room asking what was going on. Could we talk? I thought we talked about this. I just answered with, I am not interested in discussing this tonight, and went to bed. After not getting a response from me through the door, she left me alone. I feel kind of like a child for not talking with her and shutting the door on her, but I just couldn't look at her. Monday, I got up and ready for work. She was waiting for me and asked if we could discuss getting back to normal. I said, you've been doing all the talking for the both of us for the last week. Why don't you just continue? And I left for work. I have an appointment with the attorneys that my friend recommended for this week. And there we go, guys. That is the end of that one. I don't really know quite what to make about this story because I feel like we've just encountered one of the most stupid women of all time. She is surprised when her husband of 20 years is annoyed at her because she cheated on him, not just with anyone, but with a short, fat, bald man. I mean, does it get any worse? Look, I'm all for short kings and bald kings and also fat kings. What a trifecta that is. Listen, if you're short, bald and fat, get in the comments down below. Are you this bloke? I want to know. Now, one thing I will say before getting myself in trouble is that there is another comment here that I want to highlight because I think it's a very good comment that kind of, in all seriousness, encapsulates my thoughts. Here it is. I can only hope that you've decided to do what's best for you. At the end of the day, you're the one that has to live with your decisions. From the previous post, it's obvious that your wife, and I use that term merely as a placeholder, has made her decision. I know that having something that has been such a huge part of your life end can be daunting, but sometimes it's for the best. And yeah, I think this time it absolutely is for the best. You clearly made the right decision. Your wife's dumb, and she's also unfaithful. What a terrible, terribly potent combination. Good stuff, OP. Right, now our final story from this episode is actually one chosen by one of you guys. One of you added me on Twitter saying, do you remember that face tattoo story that I narrated about 6 months, 12 months ago? And I said, you know what, I do. And then they said, there's actually been an update to that post. If you don't remember the original, I will link it down below. It's probably on screen right now as well, the thumbnail, or behind the I button. Pretty much, this woman gets a face tattoo and then wonders why her fiance is annoyed at her. Like, she doesn't even tell him, she just does it, and then is like, oh, what, don't you like it? He's like, no. To be honest, it's quite a silly story, but one of you told me on Twitter that there's been an update, and there has. Just a week ago, we got this update, so here we go. About 9 months ago, my ex-fiance, Kim, got a face tattoo without telling anyone. This was just the start of her doing everything she could to ruin her life. She broke up with me and called off our 7-year relationship when I questioned why she did this. She worked in a client-facing job for an incredibly large financial institution and was let go within a month of showing back up for work after getting the tattoo. I kept in contact with Kim's sister, hoping for some news. They tried to get her help as they thought she was having some kind of psychotic break. However, she eventually called the police on her own family, claiming they were harassing her. After that, I decided to just walk away. Now, Kim didn't just destroy her own life. When she broke up with me, I felt numb. I knew this wasn't Kim doing this. I wanted to believe deep down that Kim was always like this. Always this impulsive, crazy, who would ruin her life by getting a face tattoo. I tried to convince myself that I'd not lost the wonderful woman who I'd spent 7 years of my life with. However, clearly the person who made these choices was not Kim. The woman who told me over the phone she hated my guts for not supporting her. The woman who wrote she hated me and only ever stayed with me out of pity. That was not the woman I asked to marry. That was not Kim. That was someone who I came to find out was having a mental breakdown. That resulted in months of bad decisions that will affect the rest of her life. The day I walked away and told her sister I could not deal with it anymore was the worst day of my life. It hit me like a train. The numbness and denial of what I lost hit me all at once. I almost quit my own job and moved back home to my parents. I can only thank my boss for being so understanding that she let me take 4 weeks off to deal with what happened. She and the rest of my team went far beyond what should ever be expected of co-workers and management, that it makes me realize how close I was to leaving a job I actually enjoy. I never moved on from Kim, but I came to accept what had happened. I thought I was okay until 2 weeks ago. I got a call from Kim. She'd blocked my number and done everything she could to remove me from her life. My mind just blanked when I saw it was her calling. I picked up and it was actually her. We didn't talk. I didn't know what to say to her. We decided she would come over to my place and then we talked. The tattoo is still there, but she's covering it up now with makeup. She says when she has the funds, she's going to look into getting it removed if possible. She's lost a lot of weight since I last saw her. She's not been able to find a new job. She'll probably need to move to a new city for that. She wasn't the Kim I'd fallen in love with. She was like a shell of herself. Something just wasn't there anymore that used to be. Kim told me what had happened. The year leading up to the tattoo was awful for her. The stress of everything seemed to pile up more and more. I respect her and keep much of what she told me secret. However, the thing that's important is that she secretly started doing methamphetamines to keep up her performance at work and to deal with everything. And one day, she just out of nowhere decided she hated everything about her life. She explained why at the time she wanted the tattoo. It doesn't really make much sense, but a lot of what she was thinking at the time didn't. And from there, she just lost control of everything. I won't talk about what happened after she disappeared, but it's not pretty. These are things that she did that will follow her for the rest of her life. It explained a lot, but it didn't make things any better. We talked for nearly the entire night. She didn't leave my place until almost 4 a.m. Since then, she said that she wants to try and get back together with me. She admitted she knows things cannot be the same, yet she wants to try. I haven't talked to anyone about what I'm about to say yet. I've held off on talking to Kim about it because it feels selfish. But there's something about the way Kim acts, about the way it affected my life, that irks me. When we talked that night, she said that I was lucky she cut me off. I was lucky I didn't get put through any of this. I was lucky that my crazy ex wasn't at my door screaming or showing up to my work and causing a scene. She acts like my life wasn't affected at all. I told her what happened after she left, how much it hurt, how I almost quit my job and moved across the country. Her response was dismissive. Like because I didn't go through with that, I don't get to complain. She acted like because I wasn't the one with a tattoo on her face, I don't get to act like it had long-lasting effects on me. She didn't even apologize for the explicit and hateful note she left with my things when she returned them. Or for the phone call where she called me a manipulative, selfish jerk who only wanted her for her body, or even just for breaking up with me. She knows she was wrong to do it, but it's almost as if she's acting like because she had a breakdown, I can't hold her accountable for what she did to me because it wasn't long lasting. I texted her last night saying how hard it was for me when she left. She ignored it entirely and tried to move on. No acknowledgement at all. I don't know why, but it hurt me. It hurt me so much. I feel like I did back when all those emotions finally hit me after she left. I wish she'd just never come back into my life now. I wish I didn't know what happened. I wish I hadn't picked up the call, because it hurts. But a part of me feels like I'm being selfish or complaining too much, that I don't get to feel this way because I'm not the one who had the mental breakdown. But there we go, a pretty similar story to the first one, truth be told. Both stories have a man who's been so deeply saddened, or I guess kind of even traumatized by their ex-wife now, or wife or fiance's past doings or current doings, you know what I mean. But then even when that woman has come back into their life and you feel like both these men might just say, you know what, despite all the trauma, I still love you, I'm going to get back with you, we can get through this. They both, in my opinion, make the correct decision and say, you know what, no, I can't do this anymore. What you did is truly ridiculous, it hurt me so much, and that's the end. And to both men, I have to commend them because I think they made the right decision, and I know in that position how hard that decision would be to make. So fair play to these guys. It takes a lot of courage and bravery to do that, and yeah, I would just say put yourself in their position if you can for a moment and think about how hard this would actually be. Obviously, for someone like me or you looking at this objectively, you can think, okay, these women are just crazy and stupid. But if you actually love that person, then that is a totally different conundrum. But yeah, as I said, I think they made the right decision. What do you guys think? Get in the comments down below. Entitled mum lets her son destroy a 100-year-old antique table. I, a 24-year-old woman, previously posted in r/childfree about one of my mother's younger friends, an entitled mum in her early 40s, who I first knew as carefree and wonderful until she had her first kids. That child ended up being a complete brat with her mother's encouragement. But the entitled mum had another child, a son, who's now 4 years old, who I kind of liked because he wasn't as intense as his older sibling. As of last night, that has changed. For context, my mother's greatest joy in life, other than her kids, is antiquing. She dresses every room in her house very carefully and will stop at every vintage shop around to find a piece of furniture, sometimes using road trips to find new antique stores and examine what's inside. I used to hate going with mum to these stores, but since she took all three of us kids and told us that these used to belong to other people, I think it gave us an early respect for other people's things. We were never the kids to break stuff or jump on furniture in our homes or anyone else's, and I'm pretty sure that that contributed to it. When she was pregnant with my oldest sibling in 1990, mum found a small circular wooden table with 3 curved legs topped with a circle of marble. The shop proprietor told her it was 70 years old, so she bought it for a song, shined it up and stuck it in her living room, where it immediately became a staple of our house. The coffee table lasted her through 3 kids' college graduations, a move in 2000, and countless family parties and events. Still shiny and looking new and gorgeous. It's as much a part of the family now as any of us kids. Now to last night. The entitled mum's birthday recently occurred, so since she'd given mum a birthday celebration last month, mum decides to return the favour, inviting the entitled mum, her husband, and their kids to our house for lobster. Already, I'm not a fan of this. Whenever the entitled mum and her kids come over, my mum makes a serious effort to give the kids something fun to do while the adults talk. We have a collection of colouring books, blocks, dolls, Legos, puzzles, action figures, and a TV in the basement from when my siblings and I were growing up, and mum even bought them some new toys herself. But inevitably, the kids would play down there for 2 minutes and then come to their mum to complain that they're bored, then proceed to wreak havoc on our house. My parents, who the entitled mum sees as her kids' aunt and uncle, have warned the kids many times not to jump on things, but they do not listen. The oldest kid is also very combative and likes to pull hair and hit people, as I learned firsthand, and broke a holiday decoration given to my dad by his late mother. Of course, the entitled mum coddles her kids and coos that they're the best in the world and all that BS. I've told my mum repeatedly that I don't want to be around the kids or their parents, but she brushes it off. In fact, she likes to tease me for not interacting with the entitled mum and not coming downstairs when she visits, and says that the entitled mum shouldn't get in the way of me living my life. I live with my folks and I'm invited to attend the party, but I make my usual choice of opting out. Since I've just finished the first week of a new job, I intend to celebrate with a day at the bookstore and a night with friends. But yesterday morning, as I was preparing to leave, Mum asked why I was going to leave her to deal with the 2 kids by herself. I told her that I wasn't going to let them get in the way of me living my life. She laughed and wished me a good day, and I left. My day was wonderful. I spent the morning and early afternoon at my favourite bookstore, the evening with my friends at a wine bar, and the night with them at a karaoke room. I come home around 11:30 that night and enter from a door in our sunroom, where my parents are asleep on the couch watching TV. I wake them up, tell them about my day, and they seem genuinely happy it went so well. To be polite, I ask how the party went. My folks get quiet and look at each other, and my mother, sounding very drained, tells me to go into the living room, the next room over. Confused, I look through the doorway and immediately see why. The beautiful table, now a century old, is broken. Its 3 curved wooden legs were bisected and splintered. There's a small crack in the marble top, and a collection of wood shards litter the carpets. What happened? I asked. Earlier that day, around 6:30 p.m, my dad and the entitled mum's husband went to pick up my grandpa, plus a steamer for the lobster. While they were away, Mum had worked to settle the kids into the basement and reminded them not to jump on anything. Then gone to the living room to converse with the entitled mum. As they are talking, my mother leaves to go to the restroom at the other end of the house. She stops in the kitchen before returning and hears a crash in the living room. Mum runs in. And lo and behold, the 4-year-old son had become bored, come upstairs to the living room, and started jumping on furniture, including the ancient table, while his entitled mum just watched. My mother is predictably horrified and stares as the entitled mum examines her son for injuries and reassures my mum that the kid is fine. Mum gets sick to her stomach, takes the son aside and tells him in a serious but not yelling voice that Auntie is very disappointed in him and that he knows the rules at my house. The entitled mum overhears and berates my mum, telling her that she is the only one who can speak that way to her kids, before cuddling her son and telling him that he's going to be okay. Mum then outright asks the entitled mum if she herself told the kids not to jump on furniture at our house. She replies casually, "No, I didn't tell them not to." The husbands return and all 3 men are shocked. The entitled mum's husband immediately offers to pay a carpenter to fix the table, which my mother accepts. Dinner goes on, but it's cold and impersonal between mum and the entitled mum. This morning, the entitled mum, her son, and the husband came by our house to give mum a bouquet of flowers, an apology, and the number of a carpenter who they'll pay for. She puts on a smile and says thank you, but she's very upset nonetheless. My dad doesn't want the kid in our house again until he's older. Mum says she'll be keeping her distance from the entitled mum for the time being, since she can't teach her kids to respect other people's property or discipline them properly. My heart breaks for my mum. I don't plan on having kids, but if you do, please teach them at an early age to respect other people and their things. Oh, yeah, look, I mean, you can obviously get this kind of like semi-repaired. I don't think it'll be by a carpenter, but by someone that knows what they're doing. I'm sure they can do a good job on it and, you know, get it close to how it was before. But this is an antique. You know, you're never going to get it in that perfect condition that it was in before this idiot of a son. Sorry, I don't blame the kid. This idiot of a mother let her son jump on it and just destroy it. Like, why go through all the hassle of letting your kid jump on furniture when you know your friend is massively into antiques anyway, and these items of furniture can't just be replaced like that? It's not as if it's like some desk from IKEA. No, it's 100 years old, by the way. Why just not tell your kid in the first place to not do these things and avoid the hassle of him obviously breaking things? He's 4 years old. He's gonna do that if you don't tell him not to. Come on, it's so like illogical, I don't get it. Right then, now moving on to our second story of today's episode. Entitled parent throws coffee on me when I'm half her age. So, this happened years ago now, at my first job, but I figured I'd finally post it. It remains, to this day, 17 years later, the worst customer experience I've ever had. So, 15-year-old me has their first job at an amusement park. I worked in the games department, and this day I was working one where you fish magnets out of the water that moves around. Pick up yellow, you get a small prize. Pick up a red magnet, you get a medium one. You pick up both red and yellow, it counts as yellow, you get a small prize, and shaking the magnets off to try again gets you banned from the park for cheating at the games. People, needless to say, don't realize this. So the first time, we always just tell people, hey, just so you're aware, shaking the magnets off can be considered cheating. So for next time, make sure you just leave them on. Okay, now we get to the main story. So, an entitled kid who is about 9 or 10 and his entitled mum, who is early to mid-30s, walk up to the booth, and my co-worker takes the money, gives the kid the stick with a magnet, and goes to help someone on the other side, while I'm restocking our medium price display. The kid goes for a red magnet, and catches about 6 yellow magnets instead. Well, he doesn't want a small prize, obviously. So, he looks at my co-worker, grins when he sees she isn't paying attention to him, and starts shaking them off. I, however, did see, so I grab the small prize bin, walk over, and put my hand on the stick, not on him. Okay, go ahead and pick your small prize. Just so you know, too, shaking the magnets off can be considered cheating. So for excuse me, the entitled mum interrupts, how dare you accuse my son of cheating? He doesn't cheat. Oh, sorry, she then starts to yell. He would never cheat, you frickin' dog. How dare you accuse him of that? He's a good boy, you little idiot. I'm getting you 5 for this, you little frickin' female dog. She takes the lid off her cup while yelling at me. I hadn't noticed at the time because I was 15 getting screamed at by a random adult and threw her half-full coffee at me. It wasn't burning hot, but it was still warm. By this point, of course, other workers in nearby games had more than noticed, along with a small group of adults who were playing the games too. She seemed to realize she probably shouldn't have thrown the coffee when I burst into tears and just started sobbing on the spot. I mean, I was 15 and at the time not emotionally stable by any stretch. So she grabs her entitled kid's arm and drags him off, throwing the small prize back into the booth without aiming. I'm honestly not sure where it landed as I wasn't in a good state. Must have been Texas then, I guess. Okay, can I say that? No. The co-worker at the whack-a-mole station ran back to call security since we had a phone behind the whack-a-mole booth, and the people at the milk jug toss and scatterball stations ran over to help me out of the booth, with the co-workers at our booth, and into where the phone also was, to get me out of the public eye while security came and took everyone's descriptions of the entitled mum. Fortunately, no one had left and security got to us fast. The entitled mum was caught up with soon enough, as they did a park-wide search and took her name and picture for the do not admit list. I didn't think to press any charges at the time. In retrospect, I wish I had. I went home early too, since I couldn't stop crying until long after my dad picked me up. He got me ice cream later and watched a really bad horror movie with me. It was our dad-daughter thing. Unfortunately, I'd had the following couple of days off anyways. I have never forgotten this incident, and it remains my worst customer service experience. Though hardly the only time I've been yelled at, it is the only time I've been physically assaulted on the job. Wherever Karen is these days, I hope she realizes what a monster she is. But I doubt that. She'd be in her late 40s or early 50s by now, and now that I'm the age she was at the incident, I cannot even imagine yelling like that at someone half my age over something so minuscule. Yeah, OP, I'm not surprised that you wouldn't do something like that right now. I mean, I wouldn't either, and I doubt that you watching right now would do it either, because it's ridiculous. Throwing a coffee over a 15-year-old girl because you're annoyed at a game at a theme park. Are you dumb? Well, to answer my own question, yes, she is. There's a reason none of us would do it. It's because we're not really stupid Karens. Like, yeah, you can be annoyed if you want because the game rules are slightly confusing, I do admit, but doing that? No way. No way. And now moving on to our final story of today's episode. Cult talkers think they can scare me out of my new home. I should give you guys just a little backstory on how I ended up in this situation. I grew up in Scientology. My parents joined back in 1991 and moved to the States to be involved more than they could from the UK. In 2015, when I was 15, I joined the Sea Org and signed a billion-year contract. I know how insane that is, but it was something my parents were pressuring me to do because they thought it would allow me to be the best Scientologist I could be. But last August, I saw my opportunity to leave and I took it. I was sent out with a group of other Sea Org members to confront some people who had been declared as suppressive people, SPs, who were outside the building. One of them said they had a permit to film some stuff in the streets, and since it was public that we couldn't stop them, and that it was in the car parked about 5 minutes away from where we were. One of the women I'd come out with told me to go with the guy and check it out, so I did. When we got around the corner, I told the guy I wanted to leave, but hadn't been able to because there was always someone watching. He suggested that maybe, since we were out of sight, maybe we could get into his car and he would drive me to a hotel, get me a room so I could plan where I could go after a couple of days. I took the opportunity and I got into his car. I finally felt so much freedom that I'd never felt before. He, as it turns out, had also been a Scientologist and had escaped from Gold Base years ago, so he understood my situation very well. Now, once I figured out that I wanted to go to Washington, he got in contact with some friends of his who were able to get me there without Scientology having any way of tracing my movements. And I've been here ever since. I live in a nice neighborhood, well, at least to where I had been before, and I've managed to get a job working in a coffee shop. I've been so happy to be free, but I never fully stopped looking over my shoulder. I know the policies regarding people like me, and I've been keeping an eye out for them ever since I left. 2 months ago, I noticed that a car with tinted windows was following me. I knew it was down to Scientology. They'd somehow found out where I'd moved and were trying to gather information on me. Last week, they finally knocked on my door. Even though I knew it was going to happen sooner or later, I was shaking. My neighbor, who's always been really kind to me, was over. She comes over sometimes just to check on me, and she'll bring me food if she feels like I haven't eaten properly. She's basically been like a mum to me, and I love her for it. I opened the door and things got really uncomfortable real fast. It was a couple of entitled stalkers from the Scientology group standing in front of me. Your parents have been worried about you, and you're hiding out here. Why? I'm not hiding. I just don't want to be in a cult anymore. Liar. You are a criminal. You broke your contract and you fled. You are evil. My kind neighbor then comes to the door and interrupts. Hold on a minute, stop shouting. OP is not evil and she's free to live her life as she pleases. Now leave her property or I will call the police. The second entitled stalker holds a camera pointed at my face. You are a suppressive person. You may not set foot in any Scientology building again. If you do, we will have you charged with harassment. I was confused by this. But you're the ones who tracked me down. I know the policies. I know I'm an SP. I know about being disconnected with my family. So what do either of us gain from you being here? My neighbor said, put the camera down. No. My neighbor then closes the door in their faces and goes to close the curtains, as I told her that they would probably try filming through my windows. I went and closed all other curtains in my home, and after my neighbor left, I locked my doors too. They are still watching my house from a car across the street, and I feel uncomfortable about going outside. I know what methods can be used by Scientologists who are fair gaming an SP. I know now, after watching Going Clear and Leia Ramini's show, that my experience with them after leaving is tame, but it's still pretty creepy. Why they feel entitled to follow people around to a point where I'm basically a prisoner in my own home, I don't know. But I wish they'd leave me alone. I'm not sure what information they've gathered on me, but I know whatever it is will have been sent back, and it will be used against me in some way. But until they try and use it, I have no way to really do anything. If anyone has any advice, please let me know. Oh my God, OP, I'm so sorry that you're in this situation. This is so effed. Like, my God. Guys, put yourself in OP's shoes for a moment. There are people across the street in a car, perma watching his gaff. What the heck? Like, you've done amazingly to escape in the first place. I have to commend you for that. What bravery, you know, great quick thinking to get out of there, you know, in the chance that you could. Fantastic. But now to feel like you're being watched for the rest of your life, always having to watch over your shoulder, like, oh my God, man. What is this? I need to do some more research into Scientology as a whole. Guys, if you know more about this cult and, you know, what they do and their practices and how they clearly stalk people who leave, comment down below and enlighten me, because I don't know too much, I've got to be honest. I'm going to do some more research as soon as I finish recording this video, if I'm completely honest. But wow, what would you advise him to do right now? OP, that is. I don't know what you can do. Call the police? Apart from that, I've got nothing, but I don't really think that the police are going to be able to do much. The car's just going to drive away. then it will come back. What can OP do? Entitled mother wants to monitor 20-year-old daughter's texts. I am 20 years old. I moved out of my parents' house roughly 2 years ago, and I live in a house with 2 roommates. I am completely independent from my parents. I pay my rent for my house, I have my own medical insurance, I own my car and pay my own car insurance. I don't even have to ask mummy and daddy for grocery money. Both of my roommates and I each have our own pets. We've got 3 dogs and a cat amongst the 3 of us. We've had some conflict about the animals. I've been visiting my parents for about a month, so I've been keeping up pretty steady contact with the roomies through text. My mum started asking about what I was talking about with my roommates. She knows about the conflict, and I just described the conversation to get her on the same page. But apparently, that wasn't good enough. She asked to see the text between my roommates and I. She'd also asked to see my text a few nights before, and then she picked apart every word and made me feel terrible. So I said no. I told her she shouldn't have to see her 20-year-old daughter's text to feel secure, and that I was setting a boundary and wouldn't be showing her my texts anymore. At this point, she started calling me immature, ungrateful, and secretive. I've been working remotely while visiting and was on the clock during this conversation, so I just walked back to my desk. My mum went up to her room, slammed the door, and started screaming at my dad, "She's a child! She's an immature child!" over and over again. Wow, what a wonderful start to today's Entitled Parents episode. Let me tell you, my sister is 20 years old, and if my mum, from out of nowhere, started demanding to see her texts, well, that would probably be World War III, and I'd move out with immediate effect. Now moving on to our second Entitled Parent story. Entitled dad threatens to beat me up because I charged his daughter for gas on a rental car. Long time lurker here. I love reading all of these stories, since I love watching entitled people get what they deserve. Who doesn't? After all of the things I've read, it got me thinking if I have any stories to share. And it turns out I have tons of great stories from the various places that I've worked. One place in particular was a national rental car chain, where I have the best stories. Before working there, I thought the industry was just going to be full of business guys and vacationers, so I wouldn't really have to deal with much rubbish. Boy, was I young and dumb. This particular branch was hit or miss. Some days we would be crazy busy, others we'd be so slow we'd take out for oil changes just for the heck of it, to give us something to do. On one particular day, both my manager and assistant manager asked if they could go grab food for all of us, and if I could man the shop. Everyone there was super chill, even the managers. So there was a lot of just chilling around. I of course agree and chill, look at my phone, when the office phone starts to ring. It's some older gentleman who asked for me specifically. Speaking, I say. Our conversation goes a little something like this.
Is this OP?
Yeah, how can I help?
Well, my daughter just returned a rental car at your location, and I see a $25 fuel charge on there that shouldn't be. I'm expecting a refund right now, or I'll be giving corporate a call, and maybe you'll listen to them.
I'm still keeping my cool at this point. Not a problem, sir. Let me check your file to verify that you didn't prepay for the fuel. Let me put you on a quick hold. The entitled dad starts screaming something along the lines of,
"Don't put me on hold. No one puts me on hold."
Beep goes on hold anyway. I then check his file. The notes clearly say that fuel was declined, and the customer signed a line stating that they agree to a $25 refueling fee if they don't return it with the amount of fuel that it was sent out with. "Hi sir," I say. "I've reviewed your file, and unfortunately I'm not able to issue a refund, because your daughter agreed to pay the fuel charge if the vehicle wasn't returned at the level we sent it out at. Apologies for the inconvenience, but we do make this clear to our customers, since this is a common but understandable source of confusion." Now, had this guy started the convo off by not being a POS, I would have easily given him his refund, but I refused to let entitled mofos win.
"What the F? Oh, I see. You just saw a young girl walk into your rental car place, and you thought that you could scam her? Well, how does it feel robbing a young girl of $25? I'll bet you have the money in your pocket right now."
Sir, unfortunately, that is our policy. We do not scam our customers and clearly indicate what you will be paying for before the rental. We also make sure to tell you how to avoid the fees. In this case, our advice was not followed, so we'll not be able to process a refund for you.
"Let me talk to a manager, now."
Sorry sir, they're not in the office right now, but I'll tell you, they will give you the same answer. They should be back in about 20 to 30 minutes if you want to call back then. Again, super chill managers, so I knew I had nothing to worry about, and that of course they would take my side.
What the heck? No. Some of us have things to do today. I don't want to spend my day at some rental car place. You guys are scumbags. You know what? I'm coming down there right now and I'm going to have a little talk with you face to face. You're not going to be so tough when I come down.
Sorry, he just said that some of us have things to do today, yet he's willing to come down to the car rental place. Makes a lot of sense. Make it make sense, please. Now, unfortunately, at this moment, all I could do was audibly laugh at this guy, which only made it worse. I'm looking forward to it, sir.
You just think you're so tough, don't you? You've got no idea the people in high places that I know in this state. I now know your first and last name, buddy. I wouldn't be laughing.
Sir, if you have any problem with me, I invite you to come down and resolve it in person. I'll be here until 6 this evening.
I'm coming right now, buddy. You think I'm not serious?
All right then, see you soon. And I hang up. About 20 minutes later, my manager gets back and I tell him what happened. My manager burst out laughing and just said, "Can we hear?" We went back and listened to the recording and both my manager and assistant were just dying laughing. "Were you just threatened over $25? "Apparently," I joked. We all shared a good laugh and honestly forgot about it for the rest of the afternoon until I saw a car pull up and I saw a familiar girl get out of the car with what looked like her mum. Guess who? It was the entitled dad's daughter and her mum. I peered into the car to see that entitled dad pouting in the passenger seat. He looked like a child that was told no for the first time. The best part is, he threatened me and then wouldn't even get out of the car to face me himself. He sends his wife and daughter in to do his dirty work. This should give you some indication about the type of guy we're dealing with here. The entitled mum walks in with the entitled daughter and starts screaming, berating my assistant manager. "Your employee needs to be fired. He scammed my daughter out of money and we want it back." Mom, OP already explained to you why we can't do that. I'll give you two choices. You can leave now on your own, or I can call the police and they can tell you to leave. Up to you. "Okay then, F you. We're never using this rental car place again. I can't wait until we call corporate and tell them all about this little incident." She furiously leaves the shop and goes back to her car. This is where the most amazing thing happened and made me believe in karma. She was so angry and flustered as she was backing out that she slammed into the back of my assistant manager's car, smashing the bumper. Easily a total loss for a car of that age and value. My assistant manager runs out to inspect the damage, only to find nothing on his car, not even a single scratch. The entitled parents and their daughter all had to wait for a tow truck to arrive in our parking lot, and it was amazing to watch the look on their faces while they dealt with the side effects of their trashiness. As if that wasn't enough. Want to know what the best part was? 2 weeks later, I get a call from that same entitled dad, asking if we had any rental cars available. It was hilarious how he tried to act as if nothing had happened and returned after he vowed he wouldn't. He actually rented fairly regularly after that during my time there, and we never had another issue with him. He was even pleasant on some occasions. This experience must have been humbling for him. Anyway, that's my story. I hope you guys enjoyed it. As I'm thinking about my past, I realized that I've actually got plenty of stories. So if you guys like this one and want to hear more, I'd appreciate the positive feedback. I want to hear more immediately, sir. Well then guys, if you do want to see more from OP, to be fair, great story, well written. I loved reading it. Do comment down below that you want to see more and drop a like on this video so that I know to look out for more stories from this man. Speaking of men, it's actually very funny. It's almost confusing, right? This entitled dad was like so mental. He just went crazy, shouting at people for no reason, demanding a massive $25 refund. And then after this huge debacle, you know, where their car gets totaled, he's like, actually, I've learnt my lesson here. And now that we no longer have a car, I'm gonna need another rental car. So if you take me back, guys, at the rental place, yeah, I'll go back to being a normal customer who doesn't shout and abuse people. Cheers. I mean, it would have been better if he didn't do all that abusing in the first place, but anyway, at least he got to some form of solid conclusion. I don't know. All right then, story number 3. Random butthole thinks he's entitled to my medical history. I want to preface this by saying that it's appallingly common for disabled people to be asked personal medical questions by total strangers, and that nothing about that is okay. Just don't do that, like ever. Far too many able people seem to think that being disabled in public means that my life story is public property, and it makes going anywhere far more stressful and tiring than it should be. To anyone who does this, your curiosity does not justify or excuse your rude, invasive questions, regardless of your intentions. 1 in 4 people has a disability. Disabilities and disabled people are normal, and I'm sick to death of being treated like a sideshow curiosity. Now, with that context in mind, I'm sure you won't be surprised to know that I had absolutely zero patience for today's entitled butthole's accusational nosiness. I was in a pharmacy with my walking cane, and as the person being served before me was taking some time, I went to sit down in one of the chairs they have for people waiting on prescriptions. I dropped mine off earlier in the day, so I was only there for pickup. As I'd been standing around, I'd noticed an elderly man, can't have been younger than 75, on a mobility scooter, scrutinizing me. When I sat down, he drove his scooter over to me and, without so much as a hi, he asked, "What's a healthy young thing like you doing with one of those?" gesturing at my cane. His tone was actually accusational and full of suspicion. As I said, this is something that most disabled people often have to deal with, and that goes triple for young disabled people. So many older people seem to think that young people just can't be disabled, I guess. It makes zero goddamn sense, but whatever. My point is that after years of experience, I've got a list of well-rehearsed responses to draw from. So, without missing a beat, I told him, "My medical history is none of your business." He seemed pretty taken aback and scoffed, saying, "I was only asking, there's no need to be so rude." Again, having been here before, I said, "No, you asking a total stranger invasive questions about their personal, medical situation, that's rude. Me declining to answer is not. It's called having reasonable boundaries." He scoffed again and glared at me for a bit, seemingly unable to think of a comeback. But then he did the thing that prompted me to post this otherwise run-of-the-mill encounter here. While maintaining eye contact and glaring daggers at me, he slowly reversed his scooter, beeping all the way, back towards the far end of the front counter, where he'd been to start with. Only he bumped into the woman who'd been ahead of me en route, ruining his bizarrely dramatic exit and sparking an entirely separate argument. It was honestly farcical. Not much happened after that. His prescriptions were ready first, but this guy insisted on glaring at me the entire goddamn time. Of course, I gave him a wave as he departed, and he flushed red with rage, but said nothing. Moral of the story, disabled people don't owe you anything. Leave us the heck alone, and for crying out loud, don't ask us personal questions like you're entitled to our medical histories. Now look, I'm not the sort of person that would randomly go up to a disabled person and ask them how they got their disability. That is very rude. But even me, knowing that I'd never do that, it's still important to hear from a disabled person how annoying that can be. I mean, maybe you're with your mate or, a family member and they do it, and you think about this story and you think, you know what, I'm going to intervene here and tell my friend, relative, whatever, to not ask these horribly intrusive personal questions that they have absolutely no business of knowing. Also, with the Paralympics on at the moment, I thought I'd bring you guys this story to help raise a little bit of awareness among our small, viewership community about disabled people and how they feel when they get asked very personal questions. Look, I imagine some of you watching right now are disabled. Comment down below. Is it very annoying? I imagine it is. And now moving on to our final story of today's episode. Lady gets mad because I'm speaking Norwegian to a tour group in Norway. First of all, I think my English is pretty good for it being my second language, but I still may make mistakes. Second, this took place a couple of years ago, so my memory and translations may not be exact, but you should get the general idea. And thirdly, all conversations are translated to English, especially the ones between the director and me. Background and story. About 2 years ago, when I was in university, before the virus, I worked as a tour guide in Oslo during summers. We would take groups out on a bus through the city, then get on a boat and continue the tour from there. When the group first formed, I would ask if there were any English speakers who didn't understand Norwegian. If there were, I would conduct the tour in Norwegian first, then give the English equivalents. If there weren't, I would just do the whole thing in Norwegian, but also point out in English, we all speak English, right, that there was an audio system they could listen to in multiple languages. So, Germans could hear it in German, French people in French, etc. I think there are about 10 different languages in all to choose from. I eventually learned how to say each language we offered in their native language, and then motioned to the headphones and guide in front of them that said how to turn the audio to their preferred language. So, I asked my group and a few people raised their hands. I don't recall if this lady was one of them. So, the tour started and I would point out the sites and describe them in Norwegian, then English. However, as I was giving the Norwegian explanation, this lady would yell out, "English!" After a couple times, I finally stopped myself and said, "In a minute, please wait," though I'd already spoken English on the trip, including the opening talk. This woman, though, continued through the entire tour. Though this was not a supper cruise, which we had in the evenings, we still had a waitstaff that circulated around and got people snacks and drinks. They normally ask first in Norwegian what people want, then switch to English, or in some cases Swedish or German, until they learned which language went with which customer. When they got to this lady, she gave her order and then said, "Make the guide speak English. Me and my kids can't understand her." When they pointed out that I was speaking English after the Norwegian, she said, "How do I know she's saying the same thing though? She should just speak English the whole time." The next day, my director, I don't know the exact translation of his title, called me to his office before I began my first outing of the day and said that he had received a comment card about me not speaking English and that this had ruined the tour for a woman and her kids. He asked me if this was true, and I said no. I spoke both Norwegian and English on the trip after I found out there were some non-Norwegian speakers. Since the tour for the day hadn't gone out yet, I got 2 servers, including the one who had served them, who came up and verified that I had spoken in both languages. My director just shook his head, tore up the comment card, and told me to move on with my day. I wish I'd gotten the chance to have a direct confrontation with this lady. Many people would stop and thank me or ask questions as they left the boat at the end of the tour. But this lady was not one of them. She just resorted to speaking badly about me on a comment card. Oh, look, I'm not positive it was her, but the clues all point in her direction. So, that is the story of how I got in trouble for not speaking English in Norway. Again, I'm sorry for grammar mistakes and thanks for reading. Pretty sure there was 0 grammar mistakes in this entire piece, and that is a point that I'm going to touch on right now. Alright guys, some of you may know if you've been on my channel for a long time now that I actually went to Norway. I think it was 2 or 3 years, well it can't have been 3 years ago, 2 years ago. I might put a picture up right now, and yeah, I think it was actually before COVID. Well no, it definitely was. So yeah, about 2 years ago I went to Norway, and of course, as you can probably imagine, I speak no Norwegian. What a massive shock. However, because of the way the world works, I guess, or just these people being very, very selfless, people in Norway are taught English at school, and pretty much everyone that you'll come across in Norway speaks English. It's pretty incredible, to be honest. So that meant that when I went there and I knew I could speak no Norwegian in Norway, I was really fortunate that Norwegian people could speak English so I could at least interact with them. I felt very guilty, to be honest. I knew none of their language. They knew everything of my language. And like OP right here, they speak it really well, write it really well. Their grammar is perfect. And to be honest, a lot of foreigners' grammar with English and their, general dialect is actually a lot better than a lot of English people. Sorry to say that, but it is true. The point is, this woman should be grateful that this Norwegian person in Norway can even speak English in the first place. That's the point. Why should she speak English to you? That's a real question. You know none of her language. Why should she know yours? You're just being an absolute ignorant pig. That's my opinion. You should feel lucky and fortunate that you don't have to spend years of your life and time learning someone else's language because they've put in the hard work and learnt yours. Crazy, I know. When I was 15, I lied to my school and got my best friend expelled. So, for the backstory, I had this friend who we will just call Chloe for the sake of this post. We'd known each other since we were 4, and our mums are pretty much best friends even today. Chloe was always known as a bit of a problem child. She would constantly lie and get into trouble, whereas I was the complete opposite. I was pretty much a goody two-shoes, as people would say. Even though we were polar opposites, we were still best friends. When Chloe got to about 13, she went a bit off the rails, and her behavior got worse. She started doing things like getting involved with drugs, underage sex, and making up lies about her parents, etc. Because of all of this, her parents lost all trust in her, and so they wouldn't believe anything she had to say to them half the time. Despite all of this, she was still a good friend to me and had my back. My mum didn't like me hanging around with Chloe much anymore, understandably. but because she is close with her mum, there was not much that she could do or say. Anyways, for my confession, we were now both 15 and we're in the last year of school. A lot of people were into smoking weed, and it was talked about all the time. This made me become curious, and I was desperate to smoke a joint for the first time, just to see what it was like. I would have asked Chloe for some, but she was off the stuff by then, and she was just trying to better herself in general by making an effort with schoolwork and being more respectful towards her parents. I'm very shy, and she was the only person I trusted, and I was too embarrassed to ask anyone else. So I ended up finding some myself by getting in contact with a local dealer of some silly app called Whisper. F knows what I was thinking. I think back to this moment all the time and cringe at how stupid and naive I was. Not only was it dangerous to meet some random person off the internet, but I don't know why I just didn't ask Chloe for advice anyway. Long story short, I purchased an 8th from this guy in town, and you're going to laugh at how dumb I was. I literally smoked a joint in my room while my parents were home. I was too stupid to even think about the smell, and obviously I got caught. My parents came into my room and went absolutely mad. They automatically accused Chloe of giving it to me at school and said that they were going to tell her mum and the school first thing in the morning. I tried to tell them where I had really got it from, but they wouldn't believe me and thought I was trying to protect Chloe. I wish I could have shown them some sort of proof that I met a dealer, but by then I deleted all of the evidence, the dealer's number and messages, etc. No matter how hard I tried to convince them, they weren't having it. They just wouldn't believe that their innocent, well-behaved daughter would know where to buy drugs from. Chloe's mum also didn't believe Chloe and sided with my parents too. As everyone thought that the weed was given to me on school grounds, both of our parents had to have a meeting with the head teachers. Then I was forced to tell them some BS story that Chloe had given me the weed in our break time. I felt so bad about doing it, and I knew how screwed up it was, but no one believed me anyway, so I just gave up and went along with everyone else in the end. That was my biggest regrets. Because I'm known as the good kid who never gets in trouble at school, and then there's Chloe with her track record, they automatically believed my parents, and they permanently expelled Chloe from the school for dealing drugs with no proof or anything. They just took mine and my parents' word for it and got rid of her. Flash forward 5 years. I'm now 20, and still nobody knows the truth. I haven't told anyone what really happened, and I don't know if I should. I haven't had any contact with Chloe since that incident. I was banned from hanging out with her after what happened, and she got into quite a lot of trouble, as she wasn't in school anymore, which I blame myself for. Her mum ended up kicking her out about a year after, and she ended up living in a hostel, but she now lives away with her boyfriend as far as I know, and doesn't speak to her family. I think about this every day, and I just feel so guilty and ashamed. My mum and her mum talk all the time, and I go on day outs with her family, and they all think highly with me. If only they knew the truth, that I'd lied and gotten Chloe expelled and stopped her from bettering herself and maybe developing a better relationship with her mum, they would know that I'm actually a terrible human being. This is by far the worst thing I've ever done, and I don't know if I will ever get over the guilt and shame. This is also the first time I've confessed to this, even over the internet. I have no idea how my parents would react if I one day told them the truth, but I don't even think they would believe me still, even as an adult. Oh my god, like where to even start with this story? I don't even know where to begin. It's just, you don't really get this level of depth and guilt in any other subreddits on Reddit. r/confession man, you get stuff like this. You know that this story, this event, this guilt, this, feeling of being so ashamed of yourself has been on OP's mind for the last 5 years, and only now are they, telling it to the world, really. Yes, it's on a throwaway account, but at least it's kind of out there now. At least people know about it, I guess. I don't really know what to say in terms of, should you now tell your parents about what happened all that time ago? I think if it was me in that situation, I would. I don't think I'd be able to have something like that on my mind for that long. I mean, to be fair for Chloe, I think she would already know it was you lying, right? because, she would have been told by the school that she dealt drugs to you, OP, when she knows she didn't, and obviously she didn't. So she would have known that you were lying at that point. So in terms of the relationship with you and her, it seems like it doesn't really exist anymore. That's fine. But yeah, you're right. Your parents actually might still not believe you. If they didn't believe you then, will they believe you 5 years later? I don't even know. If it was me though, I would have to tell someone at this point. I couldn't live the rest of my life having this just on my conscience each and every day, eating me up. No way, I'm telling someone. Right then, now moving on to our second confession of today's episode. I worked for a restaurant and I would steal money from the register at the end of the night whenever it was over because I was lazy. I worked for an old-fashioned restaurant over 5 years ago for a few years, in a position that I guess could be considered kind of unique by today's standards. I don't want to give many key details for how everything was done for that reason. I'd record all the tables, check amounts, etc. throughout the day. It was all done by hand and very unnecessarily complicated because there was this cool technology available we didn't seem to have though, called a computer. While still doing other normal restaurant duties, at the end of the night, I had to balance all of the cash, paperwork for the restaurant and make sure everything matched everything, pay out everyone, etc. If there was an issue or if something didn't match, we were supposed to go through all of the paperwork, type thousands of different amounts into calculators, cross-check our information, find where the error occurred, and correct it. I was basically an underpaid, everyone's female dog restaurant accountant. But I actually truly did enjoy my job and my co-workers. Well, one night I was extremely exhausted, and the cash balance in the register ended up being like $20 less than it should have been after paying out the buses. I just wanted to freaking go home, so I took $20 from my tips that night and put it into the register so everything matched. I don't know if I calculated their tips wrong or what. Well, after that night, since it saved me so much time, I just took from my tips and put my money in the register anytime it was under. Usually it was just a couple of dollars, and seriously not worth it to me to spend 3 hours trying to fix at 12 a.m. However, one night, many weeks later, it ended up being over by like $40, and I pocketed it. In my head, I figured I'd probably taken that much from my own tips to put into the register over the past however long it was. I felt so guilty, but I still did it anyway. I got to go home early. I was so exhausted at the end of the night, it felt worth it to me to do it at the time. Now, I did this for years. I kind of got slightly lazy towards the end because I knew this hack and the register paperwork didn't therefore need to be exactly 100% right. I could forge plus or minus a few dollars. No one would know at all. Now, I don't know if I ended up giving more to the restaurant or taking more. I wouldn't even be able to guess how much on either side. I thought about my deed as little as possible. I never stole money to intentionally steal money, but I guess I did steal to pay myself back, whether or not I ended up earning money. I just put it in when I needed to and took it out when I needed to, so it would match. Look, it doesn't justify it, and I feel like a criminal, and I want to confess. The way the paperwork was done, there's no way they could find out. All numbers went through me, all trust was put in my hands, and they'd never expect me to have done this. Ever. I told one of my co-workers this hack, who actually was a really good guy with good intentions, who had the same position as me at some point. I casually forgot to mention I actually took the overbalance home with me, because even though I was paying back what I'd put in, I was so ashamed to have stolen. It's truly not the kind of person that I view myself to be. I only put money in, I said. He thought my whole plan was absolutely brilliant, and because I wasn't taking money, it technically wasn't morally wrong. If anything, we gave them a few dollars. He took it upon himself to, when the register was over, hide the extra few dollars, disguised as tips of a busser with a fake name. Smart, I know. And if the drawer was ever under, he would take from his go-home quick funds. He got caught. My supervisor found the fake busser's money. I was asked about this fake person who possibly could be owed like $40 cash. I said I didn't know. He confessed when he was questioned and was fired on the spot. He didn't say a word about me. I've told this to no one else at all, until today. It is very difficult to judge someone just based on their actions one time ages ago without, meeting them in real life or knowing them very well and getting to know if they genuinely are a nice person or not. Because as much as OP says that, they weren't stealing and it's not in their nature, sure, that's fine to say that, but how do I know that's actually legit? How do I know that that is true? Like, you could just be saying that. Anyone could say that. A murderer could say, yeah, it's not in my nature to murder. Well, you still murdered, mate. You know what I mean? However, I think the fact that you started OP as giving money, like giving your own money into the register, kind of confirms that you probably are a nice person. So I take that back. With immediate effect, I hope you accept my immediate apology. I am sorry. However, just like the first story, your mate getting fired for it. Not ratting you out, by the way, is unbelievable. Well done to him. But it feels so deep, doesn't it? Because you told him that hack. He did it. You've been doing it for ages. He just started doing it. He's the one that gets caught and fired. And, no one even knows that you told him anything. And you probably kept doing it in future. Mental. My dad asked to borrow my car, then sells it. This was a long time ago. I hardly have any contact with that part of the family anymore, but I do still talk to my dad once in a while. My dad had needed a car for a while, so I loaned him mine. When I went to get the car back, the back end was smashed in. My dad tells me how he was at a red light and the car was rear-ended. Of course, I asked the normal questions about faults and insurance and everything else. He tells me the other guy's insurance company sent him a check for the damages, but it wasn't enough to cover the repairs. That was a lie, so he didn't have the car repaired. Instead, he spent the money. Now, my dad and I have the same first and last name, but a different middle name, so it's easy to see how he could claim the car was his and have the check written to him. When I told my dad that he should have just let me know about the accident and let me handle the claim, he says, "Why should you get anything? You weren't in an accident. I was." We had an argument about that, but none of my dad's arguments was even anywhere close to being valid. He also just wasn't listening to anything that I was saying. I asked my dad to leave the car at his house for a few days, and I said that I would arrange to have it picked up and repaired. A couple of days later, I went to his house, but I didn't see the car, so I thought he wasn't home. When I knocked, he answered. My younger brother was also there, which was surprising because he was supposed to be away at college, which I was helping pay for, but that's another story. I told my dad I was there to pick up the car. He says that was impossible because he sold it. I asked him why he did that, and he said, "You seem so annoyed about the damage. I figured you just want me to go ahead and sell it, so you didn't have to deal with it anymore." I was making payments on the car, and I asked my dad how he could have sold it without the title. He told me he just had the guy fill out a lost title form or something like that. I don't even know the details on it. I told him that I thought that was going to be a problem when the guy tries to register the car and finds out there's a lien on the car. My dad just says, "That's the buyer's problem, not mine." When I asked him how much he got for it, he told me he got $3,000. Even with the damage, it was worth closer to $7,000, but definitely no less than $5,000. So obviously, I asked my dad for the money, but he told me he'd already spent it. Then he went into a rant about how many bills he has and how he's even paying for my brother's college. Again, not true. Plus, my brother was sitting right there. He dropped out, but didn't even tell me, even though he kept cashing the checks I sent. I had very little contact with my parents after that, and I think I only actually saw them one time since then, which was around the time I got married, but not at the wedding because they refused to go. None of this was all that surprising though. I never ever should have even loaned the car to my dad's in the first place. Well, yeah, OP, to be honest, mate, it sounds to me like a couple of your family members are pretty horrible people. Your brother clearly takes after your dad. What's he doing? Seriously, like, what is he actually doing? This story actually reminds me of another Entitled Parents video I made not long ago. If you want to check that out, it's again about, a Karen kind of stealing someone's car, trying to put their own name on it, their own number plate. Check it out up here if you haven't seen it yet. Very, very similar story to this, equally as strange. What is it with, parents using their children's cars and, trying to get their name on the license and on the title and stuff like that? And then what? Just spending the money that they made from it? Selling it in the first place is mad. Then not giving the money back to the owner of the car, their child? Even worse. And now moving on to our second story, slightly more serious than the first. Entitled mum and entitled grandma try to kill residents of group home. Many years ago, I worked in a group home. For the privacy of all the residents, we had a set visitation room, with visitation hours by appointment only. Appointment only so that two families weren't trying to visit at the same time. It had a separate entrance and a door that shut it off from the rest of the house. It had a half bath, a TV, cable hookup, game console with maybe 50 games, a DVD player with about 150 movies, board and card games, along with nice comfy seating and a small 4-person table. Visitors were not allowed anywhere but that room if any of the other residents were home. It didn't matter if Bill wanted to show off his new bedding set or if Jack's mum wanted to see if he needed new clothes. I don't think my mum wants to do that, but anyway, if the other residents were home, no. The families of 5 of the residents were fine with it. Kyle's mother and grandmother, though, were not. They firmly believed that they were within their rights to enter the rest of the house and inspect it and his housemates. He was their baby and they had rights. By God. Well, actually no. The residents of this home were 30 to 40-year-old men with developmental and physical disabilities. They were all actually wards of the state. The fact they were even allowed to know where he was, let alone visit, was a huge privilege. To be honest, I was wondering why the rules were so strict. That makes sense. Our agency had many other homes where the families of the residents had no idea where they were and weren't allowed to see them. The families were only allowed to contact the case manager and inquire about them through him. Back to Kyle's mum and grandma. It was a constant battle to keep them out of the rest of the house. It got to the point that we had to have an extra staff member during their visits. This staff member had to sit outside the connection door while the visits were going on and physically stand, blocking their way when they would attempt to enter. I lost track of how many times we ended up calling the police to have them removed from the main part of the house before that happened. And that's when they started calling the police on us. After the 3rd time of them calling the police to demand entrance to the rest of the house, they lost their privilege of visiting. Kyle was moved to another home where they weren't allowed to know the address. This didn't go over well, to put it nicely. They were adamant Kyle was still in our home, and they threatened us several times that we would pay for keeping their baby from them. A restraining order was granted against them, keeping them 800 feet from the house, staff, residents, and no calls to the house. It all came to a head one night when at dark 30, I was locking up the house for the night. All doors and windows had to be checked and the alarm set. Another staff was doing bedtime medicine. The other 2 were helping out with bedtime routines and getting laundry going. I kept telling the other staff I smelled smoke, like a campfire, just faint whiffs of it. They said I was crazy. I just walked the entire house and nothing was burning. It must be a neighbor having a small backyard fire or something, and I got a whiff while closing the windows and it was stuck in my nose. It finally became strong enough for the others to smell. In pairs, we checked the house again. Nothing, but the smell is getting stronger. We met back in the living room and decided to go ahead and call the fire department when we realized we could see wisps of smoke in the living room. We woke the residents and had them put on shoes and jackets. The smoke in the living room was now clearly visible and it was starting to make its way towards the bedroom, and it finally triggered the alarms. Protocol was to evacuate and get the residents to the van. The living room was the exact center of the house with an open floor plan, with the kitchen on one side and a laundry room on the other. The bedrooms were through the living room and to the left and right, along with 2 bathrooms, the visitors' room and our office being at opposite ends of each other. Down the hall, we shuffled to our office because the van was parked to that side and the keys were in the office. As we came around the corner of the house, we see the source of the smoke. Our front porch was on fire. The house was brick, which was what was preventing it from spreading outwards, but it was spreading upwards towards the roof. The police and fire departments arrived just as we reached the van. The fire department went to work on the house. The police head towards us. We're all fine, except 4 people came running up to us. Kyle's mother and grandmother, along with 2 unknown men. The 2 women started screaming for Kyle and that they were here to rescue him. We'd endangered him by allowing him to live in a fire trap. They suddenly realized that there was no Kyle in the group, and they were now screaming that we'd left him to burn in that house. They were suing us, they'd shut us down, and have us in prison for murder. The police quickly asked if we had left someone behind, to which we answered no, we have all 6 men. But for their safety, we had to get them in the van and then we'd sort this out. The police held the mother and grandmother back from us, while they continued to shriek about Kyle and the fact that we'd left him to die. 2 of the staff loaded them while me and my co-worker talked to the police, starting with the fact that those 2 women had a restraining order, and for his safety and ours, Kyle had been moved to a location unknown to them. They were cuffed immediately and told to pipe down. Now that is what I love to hear. We proceeded to explain exactly what had transpired that evening. The fire was doused quickly while we did this. One of the firemen came over to talk to the officers, and we heard him say there was preliminary evidence that this fire was set deliberately. There would be a formal investigation. Kyle's mother and grandmother were arrested for violating the restraining order and suspicion of arson. The two men were arrested on suspicion of arson also. Now, moving on, results of the investigation determined a clear case of arson. There was also a deliberate rigging of a device to the door leading out of the visitation room that would have been fatal to the person opening the door, and if anyone was close by, debilitating, if not fatal. The four were indicted on vandalism, arson, 8 counts of attempted homicide, 2 counts of attempted murder. It came out that they were unaware of the other side door, which saved lives. They got a plea deal and got 7 to 10 years each. This was back in the early 2000s, so I don't remember what exactly the sentence was. Wow. Alright, look, first of all, don't get me wrong. Obviously, it's not nice having your son locked up in a place like this, but clearly he's there for his own safety, you know? Like, there's a reason why he's in this place. Look, it's not ideal for the mum and the grandma, and I get that, but come on, there's obviously some backstory here. He's not just going to be in there randomly. It's not as if he's, like, trying to fight his way out, you know? Come on, there's a reason he's there. But, and I can't quite believe they did this, trying to, you know, set the whole building on fire of the place you believe your son is in, just to try and, you know, free him or let him escape or whatever, see him, even though they know he's not there. I mean, clearly they don't, but he isn't there. Is mental. You're putting 8 lives at risk. You're actually trying to kill people. Sorry, not just putting their... I've just completely forgotten the fact that they set up a bomb, pretty much, didn't they? On the door that would have killed the person who opened it. What are they doing? Trying to kill some staff members, trying to free everyone else inside by setting the whole place on fire just to see your son? What? Are you sure? Wow. Lock these guys away and throw away the key.